And we should be live. Thanks for
Awesome.
joining, everybody.
Hello.
Howdy.
We we are happy to welcome Doc to our next Meet the Maker. It's been a while since we've been able to do one with all the trade show and other business. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say the same thing. Thank you again for taking the time. I know, a Sunday is the day that a lot of people like to spend time doing things. It's probably right here, at least the weather's fantastic. I actually just got home just in time to set up for this call. But I, again, just want to thank you for this. Doc, your name has come up a couple times in these Meet the Maker sessions that we've had, as far as recommending to as someone to talk to. And I think a lot of people, if they don't know sort of what your involvement has been in various projects, they've, I think some of the things that you've been involved in have directly touched or impacted a lot of the people that are in this, that are joining us today and that will watch this later on. So it's very, very cool to have you here. For people that are online, and I know it looks like we have quite a few people have been joining recently, but we will do our best. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to throw them in chat, and we'll do our best to make sure that we're capturing all those, so that we can make sure that any of your questions that you have for Doc are answered. We do have a new member of the West 3D team. So Doc, I will certainly let you introduce yourself. But why don't we just go around real quick for everybody here, because we do have, again, a new member of our team that has not been on video yet. So Aaron, you'll be able to introduce yourself. On mine, Alan, you're the first one on my screen.
Okay. Yeah, I am Alan. I am the media manager at West 3D. Putting this kind of stuff together, as well as putting orders in boxes and trying to make people happy.
Yeah, we've unfortunately we've been doing it's fortunately, thank you guys, we've been doing a lot of that, and we all have all these wonderful interests and stuff that we have, but the growth and explosion of Voron stuff really, I think, is we all are packing boxes, every one of us. Aaron, you're, with the exception of you, and you're the next one on my screen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron. I'm the additive manufacturing specialist at West 3D. If you email us, contact us through Discord, I'm probably the one that's responding. I am also helping out with product recommendations, things along those lines. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, so nice to see you all.
Awesome. And just for anybody that's on Discord, he has Machines on Discord. I guess, Doc, we'll have you go last, because it's really all about you here. So Civi, you're the next on my screen then. And Civi, you froze.
All right, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting out a little bit.
Oh, you're good now.
Yep. My internet. Yeah, okay, good. My internet is having issues as usual. But yeah, I'm officially the relationship manager at West 3D. I kind of also am a jack of all trades, though, so I do also lots of packing orders and interacting and complaining and mostly, but yeah.
And my name's Daniel McKay. I am the founder of West 3D, and really just a major fanboy. And that's really how I got into this. And now we've been able to make a business of it, which has been fantastic. A couple things just about us real quick. We are community focused, and when I say that, we wouldn't be here without you guys. And truly, when I set this thing up, I didn't think we would be anywhere near where we are, and it really was the sort of the love and outreach from the community. So we do try to give back as much as we can. There are a couple things that we have in the works that we'll be able to better show that, but that's us, and that's me. And For the now the person of the hour, Doc, please.
So yeah, I'm Doc. My real name's Adam. You can call me either, both, whatever. But so I've been on messing with Vorons now for a while. Sometime in 2018 is when I got my first serial number. So the first build I ever did, you can still find it if you go on Reddit, actually. You can find that serial video. It's just photos at the time. That was all that was required. And do not judge me for the wiring then, because it was not great. And One thing I've always said, and I've never tried to make any sort of false allusions to this, I am not an engineer. I'm not a designer, developer, or anything else. I jokingly say that I am the evil end user. Part of my job is I'm there to break things in creative and interesting ways so that other people may not have to in the future. And it's kind of a running joke about how ham-fisted I can get with stuff. At one point in time, a Wera Kolos managed to find its way into my possession. If you don't know what a Wera Kolos is, that is actually the combination ratchet and hammer that Wera makes. Yeah, it's a joke because years ago, Snap-on did a blurb in one of their catalogs, and it showed a picture of a screwdriver and said, "This is not a pry bar." And everyone's thinking about all those times you use tools that you're not supposed to in a certain way, you know, using that flat bladed screwdriver to pop open a can of paint or something like that. You need to hammer something in and you don't have your hammer handy. You just grab the ratchet and just, you know, slam it on it some, things like that. Well, Wera leaned into it and they actually made a ratchet, and it's actually a good half-inch drive ratchet.
Sweet. I Googled it.
Oh yeah, and it even comes with actually an extension in the box. So it comes with its own cheater bar in the box for those really stubborn fasteners. So like that's the degree of just like shenanigans sometimes I will get into when I start building stuff. But I'm actually scrolling here in the background for my serial on there. So yeah, and actually let me see when that was. I'm pulling it up as we speak because I want to remember now. Oh wow. Yeah, 6 years ago now was when I got my first serial. It took about 2 months of building in my off time to get the rig built for the first time. And then kind of just was hanging around the community. It was originally just on Reddit. And then moved over to Slack and then to Discord. And then the rest is kind of, as they say, history. But yeah, so that's kind of how it all started, at least for me. Actually, no, let me kind of rewind a little bit more. I got my start in 3D printing because I got a Tika. If any of you guys have been around for a while, you may have remembered the Kickstarter that was an absolute goat rodeo for the Tika, where a bunch of people paid for them and a bunch of people didn't get them. I was one of the few who got one, and I may have been better served not even getting one, because it was absolute hot garbage. Like, it would layer skip if you looked at it funny. It was a gutless wonder on speed, and it just was bad, reprehensibly bad. So I got that, realized very quickly that this is not going to work. And the reason I got it was because it was cheap enough. It was in that kind of, what's the worst that could happen kind of price threshold. So I got it, realized it was horrible, and got my first real 3D printer, which was a PrinterBot Play, which is, if you've seen one of those, they are absolutely built like little tanks. It's all rolled sheet metal frames and everything, and phenomenal just piece of little tech, but I wanted more and bigger. So started looking around, and the designs at the time, the H-Bot and the D-Bot and things like that, a Castle at one point, looking at them all, and then I saw the Voron, and it was like, hey, this actually looks different. It looks more streamlined and more, I'm going to say, elegant. That's not me trying to toot our own horn. That was just the thought that went through my mind as I looked at it. And so that's what I bought, and that's what I built. And yeah, so that's kind of where I got my start here.
Cool. So, obviously, you said that and sorry, when was that? I mean, that was like 2015, I assume, more or less.
So this was my serial was 6 years ago. Reddit after a certain point doesn't give you exact dates anymore. So
Oh, for the Tico or
the
Tiny.
Tico, that was 16, 17.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
And so was it really the failure of that somehow got you into, how did you discover Voron?
So I got a Tico, realized that was bad, just not great at all. And started got the printer bot. And as I said, I wanted something bigger. So I just started looking around on Reddit, looking in the various 3D printing, subs and everything else. And at the time there was no real Voron presence. And so it wasn't like today where you type in 3D printer and Voron's almost synonymous with that. It was a case of, I saw a couple of mentions of it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to dig more into this, and came across the GitHub and everything else. And was like, hey, you know what? And I've still got my folder of bookmarks somewhere of all of the various designs that I was considering, and bouncing back and forth between them all. And it's this one seems the most interesting to me. It seems the most reasonable and straightforward at the time for what I wanted to do. And so that's why I went with it. Let's see.
Oh, we've got a lot of do you have
let's see. Actually, let me do this. Copy your address. So what I'm going to do is in the Zoom chat, I just put a link to the photo of my first build so you guys can see it. Yeah, I don't know if you can swap one of you guys share.
Yeah, I can throw it on. I can throw it. Oh, wow. Well, I mean, the wiring part, you kind of cut it off from the picture, so you can't see really how bad it is. You just see a bunch of wires coming out the back.
Yes. Yeah, it was, let's see.
Here, I'm posting the link here for you guys. There you go.
Oh, no, I got it right here. I'll send you a link to the Imgur album. But
while you're doing that, Tim had asked, what's the coolest thing that has come out of Voron other than the E3D collab?
I mean, I'm biased for the E3D collaboration. Obviously, that was, I'm going to say it was my baby. It was really more just, it started off as a joke, really.
Yeah.
But coolest thing, I think one of the coolest things was actually, we were supposed to, in 2020, we were going to release the Trident, the 2.4, and the B0 all at Murph on the same day, and no one knew they were coming. And dropping 3 new distinct designs in the same day, to me, is just really, really cool. And having built them all, I can't play favorites and say this is my favorite or this isn't. But I think that having a team that is able to actually put the work in and say not just 1, not 2, but 3 distinct designs all simultaneously for a group of just hobbyists is amazing.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. You mentioned just the E3D collab and how that was something that I think you said it was kind of your, I think you said your baby, but something along those lines. Can you tell me a little bit about how that started? And I mean, do you think obviously if E3D comes out with something that's a Voron edition, that's a company that has sort of global presence beyond anything that any individual printer company probably can manifest for us. Do you think that has had any impact also in sort of the growth that we've seen for Voron too? Just that awareness, seeing that?
I think the E3D, the Revo Voron, has brought more cachet and more attention to Voron, but I also think that it hasn't been a seismic shift in bringing more awareness, more visibility to Voron. But your comment about more worldwide presence. At one point in time, I was talking with some of my friends at E3D, and they actually showed me the sales numbers. And I won't talk numbers, but what I will say is, at the point in time they showed me the data, they had sold a Revo Voron to every single continent other than Antarctica.
Wow.
So I just need to find someone at McMurdo Station down in Antarctica so I can ship one to, just so I can get that final box checked off. So if you guys know anyone, get in touch with me.
I suppose if you could find the address in Antarctica, you could just buy one and send it just to cover that.
Yeah. Like I would love to like have that, as I said, checked off, just for the sheer fact. I mean, how cool is that? Just,
That's awesome.
you saw that, you see the data, and it's like, wait, there's, and you like, because I'm just looking at a spreadsheet. I'm not like really tracking until I start getting and seeing like South Africa and Brazil, and it's like, okay then. So,
That's great.
but yeah, it was cool, but also a little surreal. And I guess I'll tell, some of you guys have heard the story behind it, or some of you guys may not have, so I'll tell it again. Is several years ago, there was a point in time where I was fed up with a particular hot-end manufacturer who will remain nameless to protect the innocent. But I sent Tim Elmore just an instant message on Discord. Tim Elmore is the owner of Illustrator, and he was also E3D's original US distributor. And I sent him a message just saying, hey, do you know anyone at E3D who might be interested in like making a hot end for us? Just because I was sick of seeing some of the shenanigans I was seeing at the time. And he's like, well, what's your email address? And I thought nothing of it. So I gave him my email address. And 48 hours later, I'm sitting there and my email goes ding, and I see it's from Tim. And it's like, hey, Sanjay, I'd like you to meet Adam. Adam's with Voron. Sanjay, or Adam, meet Sanjay. You probably know him from E3D. And it was one of those kind of record skip moments where it's like, I was honestly being a smartass. And then next thing I know, I'm emailing back and forth with Sanjay. And then Max and I get on a Teams call with Sanjay, Georgia Claire, and some of their team, and just kind of start talking about stuff. And Sanjay's like, he knew of us, one. So you were talking, Dan, about fanboy moments. Like Sanjay saying, oh, I know of you guys. I actually have one of your kits that I'm building myself, is like, we've made it, sort of thing. Like, how cool is that? And then, so working with the team at Voron Design, once again, I was, my role in all of that was I just was facilitator. But the team really came together, and the design was the work of several people, Wiley, Bad Noob, others, that it became the Revo Voron that we all know, love, and can like see as a thing. But as I said, when I wrote the IM to Tim, I was just kind of slightly flippant and being a wise ass about it. So yeah. Kind of the story of my life is the misadventures that I find just kind of going with things and letting things happen as they do. And that's kind of why I don't do a whole lot of content, but my YouTube channel is Misadventures in Melting Plastic. And that's why I picked that name.
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like such an amazing experience. What was the actual collaboration effort like?
It was pretty phenomenal. Like Sanjay was hanging out in the Voron Design Discord, and we'd have like hours long talks, like online back and forth about it. And just because this was before Revo was a thing, and he was trying to guide us to say, here are some design considerations you need to have, but I can't tell you why. And he was so eager to tell us why, but he couldn't. And so it really was a collaboration. It was, we'd send them designs. They'd say, hey, you might want to do these things. We would do those things. And then we took, I can't remember how many thousands of hours of CFD time, Bad New Brand, on optimizing thin geometry and everything else. And like we had an entire gamut of heat sink designs that we were had kind of to like try and design and cost optimize it, because everything you do that's not just a pure circular operation adds time and complexity, and time complexity equals cost. So at one point it was, well, do you want to just do a red V6 heatsink like this? Which this actually is the original prototype that E3D sent me as the color sample for what the Revo Voron would be.
Okay. You were never thinking about doing a groove mount though, right?
No, like that was the first and foremost thing, is groove mount is a no-go. But they had one of those unanodized, so they could send me that as a coloring sample. And then let's see, in this other drawer. Yeah. So speaking of Apocrypha and Unobtainium and the like, this is one of the 5 original Revo Vorons that is actually still raw and in the silver. So completely and totally unanodized.
That's awesome. Wow, that's cool.
So yeah, but it was a fun collaboration, and being involved also in the Revo beta testing. There were several of us that were actually testing the Revo before it was announced. It was originally going to be called the V7, and that's what all of us saw it as when we got into it. So that it has been a great relationship with E3D, but we still try to be very agnostic to any one vendor. We've worked with E3D, we've worked with Fadus, we've worked with 3D Print Life, Keen Village Plastics, but we try very hard to not have the one be all end all. This is the way, the truth, and the life, single source, single part supplier. That's one thing that I continually harp on with the design team, is yelling about commercial off the shelf, COTS. If we want to do something, we can't lean on custom one-off stuff. There needs to be more than one place to get something and more than one way to do something, or else we could find ourselves designed into a corner. Like we pick this one really unique widget that all of a sudden goes away. Yeah. So, and we kind of backed ourselves into a corner a little bit along those lines. Speaking of single source suppliers, when the V0 launched, I don't know how many of you guys saw that or not. So when the V0 launched, you could get 15 extrusions from Misumi and MakerBeam. And MakerBeam was the preferred profile because they sold it already in packs. Like you bought 2 200mm packs and one combo pack that was 100s and 50s. And you basically threw the 50s away and used the 100s. Well, MakerBeam didn't even know it was coming. And this was like right at the kind of cusp of the pandemic. And we broke MakerBeam. Like they were out of stock for months on their 1515 because the demand that just showed up at their front door unannounced.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, there's still, I mean, you're still using the MakerBeam nuts or whatever, right? For the carriage. And that's something that I think there's not anybody else really that's doing that. I'm sure maybe on Ollie you can find somebody now, but
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So
at least a year or so ago, that was the only game in town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess that's one of my other roles, is I kind of sometimes play evil project manager, where I'll step in and be like, hey guys, this is really cool, but like you guys are off on some serious flight of fancy stuff, and we might want to dial it back just a little bit. Let's see. In fact,
I'm sure it's so easy too. I mean, a lot of the people on these teams, I'm sure, at least some of the people I know, can get a little, I guess, eccentric. You know, like there's something that they really think is cool, and they don't really care. They just want to do it because it's cool, right?
Yep. Yeah. And like, I don't ever want to rein someone in who wants to do that. But at the same time, if we're wanting to do something that's got the Boron name as a release, we need to be sure like we are cognizant of that. I'm going to send one more thing really quick. I'm sending it as an image in chat, and I'll send a link to it too in chat so you can screen share it. But this right here is a comment Sanjay made to us as we were kind of diving in on the design process. And the final comment, the final sentence of that is really us in a nutshell. You chaotic, glorious hive mind mess. So it like when you see us from the outside, a lot of times, and you don't see behind the scenes, it's kind of like a swan on a pond. It looks calm and sedate and everything else, and below the surface, just paddling curiously.
Wow, that's a great that's a great quote too. And yeah, it sounds pretty representative. I have a bunch of other questions, but I feel like I've asked everything so far, so I'm gonna see if anybody else here has anything. And if anybody in chat has anything, please, I am monitoring that.
Well, there is a question in chat. So why the name Doc, or is it well known?
There's no big secret of it. My background is, as I said, not designer, not an engineer, not any of that. I've got my doctorate in pharmacy, and so just originally when I was picking a gamer tag for Xbox, it was Doc Jeeves, which if you're on Zoom, you might see it kind of in the bottom corner. That was originally my screen name on Discord, was Doc Jeeves, and then I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to shorten it. So now it's just Doc, because everyone just called me that. Everyone called me Doc. So I was like, you know what, that's what I'll be now. So yeah, that's it.
So we've got one right after that. What was your favorite part of Remurf?
Not the name, the acronym. That one doesn't roll off the tongue.
It is a little hard, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the whole event was phenomenal, and I don't think literally no one expected it to be what it was. And I think though the blitz builds and the giveaways that we did, seeing the people who won those,
oh yeah,
the guy who won the Trident was just over the absolute moon, and just seeing his face, and like one of our team helped. There were some kids wandering around trying to bootstrap their first 3D printer, and he'd gotten a kind of collection of stuff that he was going to do as his own blitz build of the show, but real life intervened and he didn't have time. And so he was able to donate that to those kids, and like hearing him go on about the good he did for them and their reaction to all of that, just it did me wonders. And then there's the fact that, you know, we on the Voron team seem like, you know, well, we have known each other for years, but like we've been hanging out in each other's houses for that long. Like, you know, we see each other every weekend or something. But some of these guys, this was the first time I'd seen them in person. It's particularly the European crew who came over for the event, Sanity and Tenpec. But seeing everyone there for the, you know, either for the first time since Earth or for the first time ever, that to me was my favorite part of it. It's not just the stuff and it's not just things, it's the crew and the crowd along the way as well.
Yeah. It was really crazy.
Oh yeah.
When you guys were done, I think it was, I mean, because you guys gave away a bunch of PIF parts too.
Yes.
Yep. And man, because I think that was maybe even grouped together with like some other giveaways. I was out. I think they just finished up the drag racing or like one of those things, and I was just trying to get back to our booth, which was across from you guys, and it was not easy. I'm sort of like weaving between people, and it was crazy. I think there's a picture somebody took standing up on the chair or whatever, someone from the team, and you just see like there's well over 100 people in front of your booth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was well north of 3,000 people at that event. I'll be really looking forward to next year because I know they're going to work on getting a bigger space and everything. I think though that it was a phenomenal event, I thought, and it was great seeing everyone there. Not just the Voron team, but everyone else too. So I'm looking forward to next year. And we will also be at Murph this year. So if you're there, come say hi. I'm not sure where we'll be or anything like that, but there will be several of us there. So track us down, say hi, and we'll probably have stickers where the 3 is, or the 2 on the Murph stickers scribbled out and a 3 written on it. We may have gotten a little over eager on ordering those last year, but I mean, this is why we have Sharpies, right?
Are you also going to IRF? Are you planning to be there?
I haven't booked anything for IRF yet, to be very honest. There's only so many PTO days in the year, and there's only so many times I can vanish for long weekends. And I kind of had to make a choice. And my big trip this year is I'm going to be going to Smurf. So the Sanjay Mortimer Rap Festival in the UK. I will be there for that. There will be a Voron Design booth, catty corner to E3D's booth if you are looking at a site map or anything. So there will be myself and several other members of the team there. And we'll always have something up our sleeves whenever we go to a big show like that. Let me just put it like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm hoping to make the trip down there or over there too. We'll see. I mentioned it though because you know, we had talked about the potential of even having a doc judge your print kind of thing for people,
Yep.
and I think that would be such a cool thing. And Murph is coming up really soon.
Yeah.
You know,
you know, send me an email. Let's talk about it. I'm not saying no. I don't even know what it is off the cuff, but I think we could probably make something happen, even if I come in for a day or something. But I do think, once again, I love getting out and seeing people. So we'll figure something out. We'll make something work. How about that?
Cool. I know I have a lot of questions about the PIF and prints and stuff like that, but I'm gonna let the team, if there's anything any of you guys have.
Well, I did want to mention one thing. It's not a question, but we do have Justin, who helped organize Remurf, who has said next year's event is going to be at the same location, but both halls.
Nice.
So 36,000
Yeah, it
square
was
feet.
packed.
But yeah, really the thing that I'd like to find out more about is, you know, PIF.
Yeah. So that got started because when I was trying to build my original Voron, I was doing PETG and not advised, but 2, I managed to kill my printerbot play at one point in time because the printerbot play is built like a little tank, but has no strain relief in the wiring whatsoever. And so killed something, I can't remember what, but was waiting for replacement parts. I had no clue when they'd get to me. And I was just like, I want to finish this other build. And so I was like, hey, can someone help me get print parts for this? And someone did. But you know, I paid out the nose for it. I can't remember what it was, but I thought it was a little high. And when I got the parts, I was like, these aren't bad, but I'm getting just as good off of my printerbot play over here. Like there has to be better. But I started off originally just with, hey, I struggle to get things printed. And that's like one of the big things on building a 3D printer. So let me help people start doing their own stuff. So let me print the parts for them. And so it was people would DM me on Reddit and things like that saying, hey, I'm wanting to do a Voron. And originally it was, you know what, you send me filament, I'll send you parts. And just when I get around to it, when I can get it done, I will get them to you. And then the list kept growing and growing and growing. And I started figuring out very quickly that there's a continuum for filament manufacturers. There are some that are really good and there are some that are not.
Oh yeah, the send your filament probably doesn't work that well.
No, it did not. I learned very quickly that there were certain things I didn't want people to send me. And I can dig up the list of what it was originally, but I finally got to like a list of 5 suppliers who I would take it from. And finally, I was just like, you know, I can't spend time in filament tuning for this because it'd be often like someone would send me a spool of main and a spool of accent, and I'd spend half the spool of main just tuning it in.
Yeah.
And then I've got to buy my own spool to make them whole to get them their parts. And it's like, this isn't sustainable. So I started just buying my own filament and saying, hey, basically cost plus a little bit. You know, cost was beer money and things like that. And started kind of rolling that. And then other people were wanting to get on it. I was like, if it's going to have our name on it, it needs to we need to have standards and the like. And part of my background is in clinical quality process improvement. So I designed a program for a former firm I was with that looked at what we call inter-rater reliability, which is a study of if you give multiple clinicians the same set of data and the same end state criteria, how likely are they to make the same decision? And if that decision-making process is not uniform, then the process itself is broken and needs to be refined. So I kind of started looking at things under that lens and saying, so what can we do to make prints better? And it was always, I was continually tuning, and I still am. Every time I do a set of parts, it's like, well, this is what I do better next time, better next time, and better next time. And people would want to help out. And hey, I still to this day, if you are able to meet my quality standards, you are welcome to join the team. I will welcome you with open arms. But my standards it's hard to quantify in a strict thing. But what I will say is very quickly and easily is if you can look at your parts and say, hey, I need to do, or I can do this better, and this is insert anything here. If you say, I can do this better, spend your time tuning. Don't spend your time coming to us and coming to me saying, hey, am I ready yet? If you can see it, I can see it. And if I can see it, I'm probably going to tell you, you're probably not ready. Now, I'm not saying these parts are going to look absolutely injection molded. They're not. I mean, we're still working with computer controlled hot glue guns, but at the same time, there's a lot of pretty common fails that I see that you can control for. And one of like the things I keep saying, and I'll say it probably, you just about put it on my tombstone, is that the secret to good prints is very, very simple. It's print fast where people cannot see it and print slow where people can see it. So you can be running 10, 15,000 accelerations for your infill. If you run 2,000 for your perimeters, if you run a 40 millimeter a second external perimeter, it's pretty easy to make a print look good. But as you speed up, as you start doing things, you need to start having your fundamentals dialed in more and more and more. So that's where it all comes in. And it really is a continually iterative learning process for everyone to make sure they're continuing to deliver out what I kind of expect. What I expect. And I really expect someone who is a PIF provider to be self-policing. I expect them to have that level of self-awareness and maturity that they can look at what they've got and what they're doing and say, you know what, this isn't right. But at the same time, also, I know they're human. I know they're going to screw up because I've done it too. I've shipped bad parts before, and I'll probably do it again if I'm being very honest. Yeah. Stuff happens to the best and the worst of us. So if that happens, though, my expectation is you will do for your recipient what is best for them in their build. If you have to eat the cost of sending them another set of parts, do it and do it cheerfully. Yeah. Because these are people who are depending on you to get into this game and get into building their rig, and you're helping them do something they may not be able to do otherwise. So you lording that over them is not at all where my head and my heart are at. Yeah. I know, and I once screwed up and I shipped a set of parts where I had fat fingered the extrusion multiplier. And this was back in the 2.2 days where there were a whole bunch of like press fit or thread fit parts. And you just about bloody well needed a set of pliers to thread something together. And I had sent the parts to someone in Japan. And I was like, no.
That's rough.
I saw it and I was like, they sent me a message. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what happened. Give me a week. And I gave FedEx a whole lot of money that week, but I made sure they got what they needed. So that's kind of print it forward in a nutshell. I picked the name because that was a name that was kind of common in the 3D printing circles. And it still is to a degree, because when I picked it, I had no clue it would get to be the way it is when I did it. I had no clue Voron would be where we are today with it. I just went with it because it sounded good at the time. And, you know, if I was king for a day and was starting with a blank slate, would I go with that name again? Honestly, probably not. But it's at a point now where it's set in the vernacular, in the zeitgeist. So
Yeah.
we'll roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's fantastic. We definitely still recommend our customers to use the PIF program if they can. I mean, the price is great, the quality is great. Everybody's been vetted. I know a lot of I mean, we see and we get calls from people that, you know, have bought stuff from some other third party on Etsy or something like that. And I don't want to knock, there's probably some very great, you know, providers, and then there's some very not. It's just hard to vet, right?
Yes, absolutely. Like
very
I
nice.
can't look at everyone's prints and say, or at least not with my day job, and be like, hey, these guys are good, these guys are not. Because once again, it goes back to us trying to be Switzerland, for lack of a better way of putting it. I don't want to say these guys are good and these guys aren't if I'm not continually reviewing them. And also, I don't want to be seen as putting my thumb on the scales because, yes, I run the PIF program, but I don't want to say someone else is bad and it just be seen as me trying to protect my team. Which, by the way, there's someone once said that Doc gets a cut from every PIF kit that goes out. I will completely and totally be on the record, swear on a stack of Bibles, I do not get a dime for this. The only time I turn any money is if I send a kit out to someone that I have sold them, I get whatever margin on what I have sent and sold is. But anyone who tells you that I'm getting a cut of the VIG or anything else like that,
not true.
No, that is, I'm not saying they're lying, but them and the truth ain't in the same room right now.
Yeah. You know, it's one thing I think is really cool, and I mean, I'm sure the community appreciates. You know, I will say that's sort of the way that we go to, and more because, you know, the printed parts experience, working with PIF, or if you go through us or any of those other places, any of the other places that you're getting printed parts from, it's oftentimes a very early experience into the community. And I feel like coming through, I mean, we mess up a lot. I mean, there's hundreds of parts, right? And we're accommodating modifications and like all these things. There's versions, tap parts, and it's like, oh crap, R8 came out, you know, like, or a lot of times, hey, I got these parts 6 months ago and stuff has changed. And it's like, you know, that stuff happens. But you know, or hey, I over torqued my, you know, my part and I cracked or something like that. Stuff happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it really shows a lot of goodwill, and it shows shows how the community really is when you come through and you say, hey, you know what, we'll take care of that. Because we get it. We've all been in that position, you know, or you know, we know that mistakes happen, right? And I'll say we've had people send their own filament. Sometimes we're using, you know, it's not all equal. And I mean, I've seen where we've had parts. I mean, so we've had our providers as well. And I'm sure this happens with PIF. It's one of my questions, but you know, you're looking at a specific configuration with a specific, you know, filament that was being used or whatever, and it could look great, but then when they build their second or third printer, that could be a whole other story, right? And it's one of those things that's probably hard to control. Do you guys have a control for that, or sometimes do you bring somebody in and then you see that maybe things aren't the same as when you first judge them for one reason or another?
So the part of with PIF is there is that onboarding process where I'm going through and you're sending me photos of everything and I'm looking at it and pointing out these things you need to think about. And it is, I can't think of a single time where it's been one and done. Like someone sent me a batch of photos and I'm like, this is it. Good. Well, but here's the other part though. The final step in getting to be a provider is you send me a full set of parts, like actual in a box to my front door. And I sit down and I dump it out all on my floor behind me and go through it with the basic fine tooth comb, looking for things, saying, hey, this right here is right, this is wrong. And like what I'll often do is I'll have my phone and I've got a dental pick, which this thing, and I am literally pointing to things on the part saying, this right here, you need to fix this, you need to fix this, you need to fix this. So going through that process, I'm expecting them to learn, because I'm not giving them the answer. I'm just giving them the, hey, your extrusion multiplier is too high. Hey, your pressure advance values are wrong. Hey, you got this, this, and this, or I'm seeing this that could point to this. But I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm just saying that there are answers out there, but you need to solve for those. Yeah. So I'm expecting them to police themselves. But at the same time, if someone ships something out that's substandard, subpar, or even concerning that someone else gets the parts and they see it and they're like, I don't know. First and foremost, I tell them, go back to your provider, because once again, they're human. Give them the chance to make it right. If they make it right, great. But if anything happens, if they give you any sort of pushback or anything else, come to me. I am the final arbiter. And I tell the team that, guys, usually I'm going to decide in the favor of the recipient, not you guys. So it's in your best interest to be on the up and up. And I've pulled people from the program before. I've straight up said, hey, look, you're on the bench for a while. Figure your stuff out, clean it up, get your act together, and then we'll talk again. But right now, I need you to take a step back, because what you're doing isn't up to what we all believe the standard should be. And the goal really is, once again, to get people good parts and to give them something to be looking at and say, hey, I can do this myself with what I'm building right now if I put my own time investment in on this. Yeah. That they're really intended to be that kind of inspiration, that this is where I could go if I take that time.
So I guess two questions, because you kind of mentioned that, you know, you take pictures, or, you know, as like the initial screening, it sounds like then you actually take the part, like a full set of parts, which is awesome, and you're pointing things out. What's the most common, or like, you know, you is there anything that's like you get in and you're like 75% of the time this is going to be the issue, you know, that you go to?
So one of my things is, if you're on direct drive and your pressure advance value is higher than 0.05, I will know it, I will see it, and I will fail you out for it, because I know exactly what it looks like, and I don't care what the tuning print tells you, it's wrong. Like, I can see exactly where it thins out on a part, and I will see it and I'll fail you for it, because it points to there being weaknesses in other parts of that part, because as that filament flow is changing, as the print head accelerates and decelerates, it's thinning that line out. Now, if that line's getting thinned out, that material on that joint is also thinning. So that's one really common one. Another thing is, if you're using XY compensation on your first layer for elephant foot, I can see that, and it's not appreciated. Like, I'm expecting you to get everything mechanistically, physically sound before you start dialing in slicer hacks to accommodate for other things.
We've
like,
seen that too.
Get it all right first, and then start, you know, solve for speed with software. Don't solve for inadequacies in your first layer or anything like that. So those are the two big things I see.
Cool. What do you have, like a idea of what your reject rate is? Because I'm gonna say, I mean, I know we talked to a bunch of people. I've talked to people on the phone, and it's like pretty common that people are like, hey, once I get this, you know, 2.4, this Trident tune, like I want to join PIF and start doing PIF parts. So I'm sure you have a lot of interest.
I do. So the reject rate is hard, because I very seldom tell someone, no, go away. You're totally not cut for this. I've done it before. Well, yeah, I've done it before, but it was, in those cases, it was usually a case of attitude and not inclination. Like, there's someone who I know may not people well. So, but because it's so rigorous, the process, there's a lot of self-selection that goes on. It's where someone says, hey, I want to get vetted for it, and then it's like they put photos in, and the other members of the PIF team also weigh in and say, hey, I'm seeing these things here, tune them and come back. And then they're like, well, the parts are good enough for me, maybe not. So there isn't, I don't keep a hard and fast like reject number, very honestly. So that's why there's the long answer there.
Fair enough. Team, any questions?
I have a question really quick. So PIF is for Vorons by Vorons. That means
Correct.
PIF parts have to come from a Voron, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I've had people accuse me of gatekeeping, saying, oh, well, why can't I use my D-Bot or my Bamboo or my Prusa or my whatever else? And it's, well, I am the benign dictator of PIF. So my way or the highway, and my way says it's coming off of Voron. So is that gatekeeping?
Yeah.
Maybe. But if you want to do printed parts for people, that's cool. I encourage it. Help out your fellow builder. Awesome. Good on you. But they're not PIF if they don't come off of Voron, because there is that lineage aspect too, where it's, once again, this is what I'm building made this. So this gives me a goal. This gives me something to shoot for. And one kind of a follow-on question to that is there any Voron that you won't get or won't be able to do PIF on? And the answer to that is technically no. You can do it on any Voron. But what I will tell you is if you only have a V0, I will tell you to please step away from the ledge, because you have not done the math here. I think last time I checked, it was like 24 different individual plates on a single V0. So you're playing plate swaps like every 4 hours, do a single set of parts. And it's like, I am not going to let you do that to yourself. Now, if you've got like a fleet of V0s and you want to do it and that's how you want to roll, you know what? Let's talk. But a single V0.
That'd be cool. That'd be a sight to see.
When we were doing the V0 design and whatnot, I actually, as a joke, but still kind of semi like want to do something like this in my head one day, is I called it the V0 centipede, which was a massive external frame. So like 40/40 L panel extrusions and the like, housing multiple V0s actually racked and built into that one monolithic frame with 1,000-watt single integrated power supply and an 8-core thin client as a clipper host for like 6 or 7 V0s, all in one monolithic enclosure, all hard bolted together. And it was alternatingly called either the V0 centipede or the dreadnought. And nothing's ever come of it, but one day I will find some way to actually make it happen,
cool.
just because I think it would be cool.
Oh man, that's so cool. That'd be awesome.
So, but yeah,
there's so much babysitting to get. I mean, if you were to if you were actually to use that for printed parts, I just can imagine the amount of babysitting that would have. That would be insane.
Well, I mean, if you want to think about it, just think of getting a bunch of Prusa minis and setting them on a bench, and like how much babysitting you'd have to do there with whatever you're trying to produce out on those. And it's the same with a V0. It's just it's more than just having to print 100 examples of one part. That's easy. Yeah. Doing 100 different parts and making sure it's all in the right bag at the right time, the right color, and everything else, as you said, that's getting less fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's also, 24 different spools that you have to be running. And, you have to, are you labeling them as this is the accent printer and play? Like, I mean, I just imagine the headaches again. Would be cool if somebody wanted to try to do it.
More power to them.
We restrict our V0s mostly for like small, like if you want origami parts, like that's a great V0 type thing. But yeah, that's interesting. I get you mentioned sort of in your early days of PIF and having people send stuff, and you kind of ended up consolidating to a few brands. And obviously, historically for the last, I don't know, 2 years or whatever, it hasn't been that long, I guess. But Obviously, KVP has been that, I think that brand, I think maybe originally with PIF, that you kind of said, okay, probably we brought more people on, like, hey, people buy this one, tune to this one.
Yeah.
And then, a year ago or whenever it was, I know that 3D Print Life, there was a sort of promo. They were doing a group
Yep.
buy. A lot of people were doing that. I haven't heard much about that, or I haven't heard any sort of real change, but can you talk a little bit about that and sort of where the idea for bringing somebody else as like kind of a recommended filament provider on?
So way back when, yes, KVP was my recommended supplier because I had bought, I think, 3 or 4 cases at the time for myself and my own needs, and was like, hey, these guys are commercial, like they're the OEM for a bunch of big brands, and they know what they're doing at the time, and they're doing it really well. And so then I put together a couple of times where there were some bulk buys behind the scenes. At one point, I helped coordinate the purchase amongst a bunch of different people of over a metric ton of filament, which is kind of cool. And then things happened. I think it was at the end of 2019, they decided, because KVP is Keen Village Plastics, and originally it was Village Plastics, which was the filament manufacturer, and Keen Building Products, 2 separate entities. And Keen Building Products built Village Plastics, enrolled KVP's manufacturing lines into the Keen Building Products overall campus. And that involved a move across essentially the state of Ohio. And we all know when you move facilities, there are growing pains. And there were some serious growing pains with KVP, where the product they were producing was not to the same standards as we would hope for. I mean, you've got spools of blue that wander all the way from baby blue to navy blue on the same spool, and it's not a transition spool. So like I can't use that. And like birds' nests in a spool, like you're saying that, how do you even do that? Because it's supposed to be under tension the whole time. How do you get a knot to form in a system in tension? Yeah, I mean, you're not supposed to, but I've seen it happen myself. I've lost 2 different plates to birds' nests on 2 different spools from my own stuff. And so how that came about. So obviously I can't put my name on name behind someone who's producing subpar filament. And so 3D Print Life was recommended to me by other people I trust. And Buzz Baldwin is the guy who runs 3D Print Life. Yep. Great guy. He and I talked for a good 6 months, just trying to figure out what he'd like to do. And I mean, Buzz is someone who's very enthusiastic about the community and what 3D printing can do for the furtherance of knowledge and education and everything else, much like all of us. And so he was like, I'd love to do a kind of co-branded ABS, because you guys are the ones still really pushing ABS with our Enviro additive on cardboard spools to like lean heavy into the environmental side of things. And let's do some kind of special pricing on that, but let's kind of do it as a one-off and see what happens. And so we did that, and it's just, I've not dove back in on doing that again with 3D Print Life or doing it with someone else. Yeah. It's one of at a certain point, it does turn into an hours in the day problem. Yeah. But between being an admin on the Voron Design team, my day job, I mean, that pesky thing that pays my bills, and personal life, there's only so many things I can do and juggle and the like. And there's only so much push and pull before I'm pulled too many different ways. So will it ever happen again? Hopefully. When will it happen? I have no clue, if I'm being very honest. Yeah. But I'd love to do it. It's just a matter of, like, I love 3D Print Life's filaments. I say this as someone who I paid the same price that everyone else has paid. Yeah. So I didn't get any special sweetheart deals. The only thing I got out of all of it is I got 2 750-gram spools of material from them for testing purposes originally. That was the only thing I've gotten out of this entire deal with them. So once again, Doc's not getting kickbacks or anything else. It's I pay what you guys pay. So if I say, hey, this is good or this is bad, it's because I am, once again, that evil end user, and I paid the same money you did to be able to say, yeah, I got what I paid for out of this, or no, I did.
Has there been thought, and I mean, I'm assuming there's a time constraint here, but I mean, obviously now I'm assuming you have a small network of people that you trust on, vetting filament or something like that.
Oh,
But coming up
absolutely.
with like these are the 5 or 10 different ones that, hey, this providers you can use as long as you let people know. Like, have you thought about opening it up a little bit?
So I honestly trust the provider team to do their own due diligence and do their own homework on what they use and what they send to people.
So they can use
But
any other filament if they want.
so long as it's ABS,
Okay.
but
cool.
ABS or ASA, and it is not white. White ABS and white ASA have their own issues. One, you have to throw a ton of colorant to make white ABS that sometimes can make the filament more brittle and more prone to breaking and damage under load as opposed to other colors. The other part of it is it's purely cosmetic. That white part is going to get grungy really, really fast, just like your hand oils and everything else. So it's not going to stay white very long. On top of, white will show any and every single imperfection in what you've printed there. It is the path to madness in terms of trying to tweak and tune. So that's why there's no white. But otherwise, I just encourage providers to find suppliers that they trust and that they can consistently get good materials from, and lean heavily in on that. I know several guys here in the US are using fusion filament, particularly for their accent colors, to great success. I know in Europe, some of the team is using a brand I've never used because it's Europe only, but it's Print with Smile. But one of the, I'm going to say big, not big. One of the secrets is there aren't as many filament lines and independent filament manufacturers out there as you might think there are. Yeah. So depending on what you're buying, it's probably all tracking back to one of a handful of OEMs. And so if you can confirm the base resin and the OEM for brand X is the same OEM as for brand Y, and the base resin is the same, you should be good, same inside those constraints. But as I said, I expect the team to be doing their own diligence and homework. So I do not, I don't maintain my own list of these are the filaments you will use. It's more a case of these are the filaments I've personally used, good luck. But if you want to use Amazon Basics ABS and you get good results for it and you can pass my standards with it, game on, go for it. But there is that push-pull balancing act once again on terms of quality and consistency that you may not always get. And you learn very quickly when printing at volume that what's good enough when you're just printing maybe a spool of every other week or something like that is way different than when you're cracking off a spool a day, if not more. So
team, do you have any Aaron, you had a white, didn't you? Were you running white?
It was white. It's rose pink now.
You printed some red ABS, didn't you?
Yep, it was about 200 grams of red ABS, and every single white part in that machine is now very disgusting, to say the least.
I feel your pain. Been there, done that, got that t-shirt, so.
Oh, and all the parts have cracked, so I've had to semi-rebuild that machine probably 4 or 5 times now. It's getting a full redo. Don't worry.
Yeah, you've gotten better about rebuilding at least, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I can do that really quickly now.
There was someone out there who used to say that learning only occurs after repeated demoralizing failures.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong.
You know, I wish I could go back in time and have my printer be the same color it was during my serial video. That was,
Oh, I'm sure it's beautiful when it first comes off.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was so good for
Why
2
do you
weeks.
think most of my rigs are all black now?
It's yeah, you don't see anything. Sandy asked, does a PIP provider need to certify their other machines they commission, or is there a level of trust that they can tune properly after they go the first time?
There's a level of trust. If you can do it once, you can do it multiple times. And once again, if you build a rig, get certified, and then start shipping out crap parts, I will find out. I will find you, and I'll yank your status. I have no problems doing it. I've done it before. I will do it again. I try very hard to be easygoing and understanding. Life happens to all of us. But if you're doing something to put the name of the program at risk, I won't allow it. So I trust us all to be adults at the end of the day. Big boy rules, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. Justin, Remurf Justin, is saying he sees a lot of question about using resin for Voron parts. For people that may not, is it a good idea or a bad idea?
So what I will say is there's a member of the community who happens to work for a little company who knows a little bit about resin. You may have heard of by the name of Form Labs, and built his own Voron using Form Labs' toughest resin at the time. Now, this was a couple of years ago, so that things may have changed, but using their toughest resin and whatnot for his build at the time, he came back and said, do not do this. So if someone whose day job is in resin SLA at the time says this is probably not a good idea, I don't own a resin printer personally. I do not need that devil in my house. But if someone who knows more about the subject than I do says this is a bad idea, I am generally inclined to trust that they know what they're talking about. So is it possible? Sure. How long it will work? It'll work at least once, but I don't know how long past once it will work. But also, there's nothing wrong with potentially using resin for, at least if it's temperature stable resin, for say accent parts. I know Nero has one of his stealth burner fronts is clear resin, which looks cool as hell. And because it's not structural under load, it's a great place to use it. But are you wanting to make your XY joints out of resin? Probably not a great plan. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's your build, not mine. So if you want to try it, go for it. But just know from what we've seen so far, it hasn't worked yet. I'm not saying it won't work for you, but I'm saying we haven't seen it work well yet.
Interesting.
As I said, I built my first Voron out of PETG. It worked for a while, and then the bed mount started going like that under heat and load time. So once again, it's like we tested these things and we've come to the conclusion about certain things because we've probably done it ourselves.
I've got 2 questions. The first one, it's kind of related to one asked earlier, but as far as like the most common reasons to, I guess, be, sent back, tried again.
Yep.
But after the initial vetting, like when you're physically looking through the parts, I was wondering what the most common reason to, try again would be.
So big one, once again, is pressure advance. Pressure advance is not a magic bullet. It does require tuning. And what looks good on those test print, on the calibration print, doesn't quite line up to what actually works when you're printing parts at speed. And there's a bunch of nuance that goes in on that. But pressure advance is really the thing I see that causes a lot of people issue. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find something really quick. one of those things that I saw it enough. I took photos, and I just need to figure out where I put them. There we go. There we go. Copy image. Actually, no. What I will do is I will put this. So this is a full size one, but it's got my trademark arrows and whatnot on it. So you can see exactly what I see when I look at a part that has the pressure advanced tuner on.
Yeah, it looks too high.
I'll see if I can share this on YouTube too.
This is afterburner front, am I correct?
Yes, that is an afterburner front. And that is one of the parts that I spent a whole lot of time looking specifically at that one, because all the curves and sharp turns show off that issue right there, where those corners thinning out as you're making those accelerations and decelerations, when you've got your pressure advance tuned above a 0.05, that's immediately, as I said, one of my clues I'm looking for. So you can sometimes kind of hide that and you're taking photos and whatnot, but when I get those parts on hand, it's like, here's a problem.
I guess kind of related to this, have you investigated using multiple pressure advance values per print feature?
I have not tried a per feature pressure advance. Now, what I do use is I use per feature acceleration, deceleration, and square corner velocity changes to dial in what I think looks good for my stuff, but I haven't tried using per feature pressure advances. The post processor script that I use, and I did not create it, by the way, I don't code. So I use someone else's, and I can't remember whose it is, and I'm very sorry for that. So if you were the person who wrote that, I apologize. I can't remember your name right now, but thank you. But using that, I could hypothetically change pressure advance for or by feature. I just haven't played with it, very candidly. And that's one of those things that pressure advance is one of the last things really that a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, you can sometimes get away with just the defaults in Clipper. So, I would say spend your time trying to get your mechanical sound before spending time trying to find ways to get clever with pressure advance. But I mean, if you've played with that, I'd be curious very much about what you've seen and what you've seen and how you've done it. Because just because I haven't done it doesn't mean it's not a valid solution.
We might have to talk at Murph then.
All right, cool. Yeah, try me down. I mean, it's not like we won't have a whole bunch of printers sitting around that, if nothing else, we can try it live.
I can't remember I don't know if they've actually shared the map, but we'll find you.
Yeah. We're wherever they decide to put us.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah. Yep. So
Sibby or Alan, do you have any more questions on PIF or anything printed parts related?
I was just going to follow up with that, and I know we were talking about like the sorts of things you tend to fail people for, but I don't know, what sort of tips do you have about things that you've seen that are good, I guess, or do you have more tips, I guess, in how to get good parts just based off what you've seen?
So my tuning process is very, very brute force iterative, which is I print a thing, I look at the thing, and I'm like, what have I done wrong here? And then I change a thing, reprint it, and keep going. For example, how I landed on the extrusion multiplier I use for a given brand of filament is I start at 1.0 in Prusa Slicer, and I print a couple of test prints at 1.0. And then if it's ABS, 1.0 is going to be too high. And so then it's like, okay, now let me do 0.95. Is it too high? Are the top surfaces looking good? Yes, no, maybe. And then I'll do, okay, so maybe it's still too high. Okay, so let me drop to 0.9 even. Okay, now we're looking too low. So let's work our way back up. So let's do 0.91 and then 0.92 and then, okay, 0.93. All right, 0.92 is where I need to be. So there is no magic bullet in tuning for me. It really is a case of do a thing, repeat lather, repeat, rinse, repeat. And eventually, over time, you will start seeing trends and commonalities where you can say, I see this, so I need to change this. But until you get to that point, you will need to understand that the tuning and tweaking process is going to be iterative, and it's going to take time for you to develop those reflexes of, hey, I see this, so this is what's wrong. There's guides out there. I mean, Simplified 3D of all companies actually has a pretty decent, print tuning guide saying if you see these things, these are the things you need to change. Prusa has got a decent one too. There's several other great ones out there on the web that are great just starting references. But at the end of the day, nothing replaces the ability to self-diagnose and self-analyze and see, this is what I did. So this is the setting I changed. This is what caused problems. Let's change it back and see if it still happens or not. So it's just having that mindset of continual quality improvement and continual self-analysis is the best tip I can give you. So I'm sorry I don't have just a doc says do this and all my prints will be great. Well, I guess I will say print slow. It's really easy to make stuff look good when you're printing slow.
Someone asked if there's any recent slicer improvements that you're aware of that might warrant sort of doing structural parts differently.
They're probably referring to Arachne, the perimeter generator that Cura rolled out and then Prusa Slicer rolled in. I've used Arachne some, and it's interesting, but it doesn't also change the build or the part requirements that we've established and codified, which is 0.2 millimeter layer height, 4 perimeters, 5 top, 5 bottom layers at 40% infill. If there are things that may come that would change those to give us parts that are as strong with either faster print times that look the same, or parts that are as strong that, are other things, once again, that result in either less material use, less time use, or things like that, I've not seen them yet. I played with, for a long time, a 0.6 millimeter nozzle, and not just me, several of us, and said, okay, well, let's try 0.6 millimeter nozzle, but let's still force it to the 0.2 millimeter layer heights, and let's see what it looks like. And I could never quite get top layers where I was as happy with them at. Or I'd see quirks with pressure advance more easily with that 0.6 nozzle. Or even, let's say I really want to get time hacky and I'm going to do a 0.8 millimeter nozzle and do infill every third layer and just dump it out. And the parts worked, absolutely. And, that 0.8 millimeter or the 0.6 millimeter thick infill made some parts that were really chunky strong, but they were not pretty. And once again, it's not just, is this functional, but is this functional and aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah.
Because there is that balance, that I'm going to say zen, with what we do at Voron Design, because it's not just about doing a thing. It's not just about doing things fast, but it's doing it also with that certain just look. You can look at a printer now and say, okay, I know that has Voron DNA in it of one way, shape, or form or another. And there's that kind of cohesiveness where design, I'm gonna say design and design go hand in hand. Aesthetics and engineering are, being expressed collaboratively.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think once again the Arachne perimeter generator is interesting. It does shave some time off of certain parts, but it's not the be all end all. I've had some times where I've had certain parts where I've been like, okay, this is not good, and I'll flip back to the original perimeter generator for those specific parts. But once again, there are very few magic bullets out there. What I will say is that if you're trying to think about your printing and everything else, nowadays we're in an era where kinematic platforms, so printer designs, are generally speaking pretty damn good. So we see speeds now being more and more limited to volumetric flow. And there's a couple of ways of cracking volumetric flow. Obviously, given my bias for E3D, given my history of collaborating with them, the E3D Revo high flow system, I've used those for a couple of months now. I was one of the testers for them. I've had great luck with those, but I also have rigs that have got Bondtech CHTs with Fetus Rapidos in them. I've got a rig with a CHT and a Dragon high flow. So flow is the thing that really will start cutting down on your print speeds, just hitting volumetric flow caps. So be cognizant of that. But at the same time, if you're looking at commercial printers and things like that, your Prusa's, your Ultimakers and whatnot of the world, and you're looking at their default configs, a lot of those are pretty conservative. So if you're wanting more speed out of a printer that may be kinematically speed limited for one way or a reason, like you've got a commercial rig, once again, your Ultimaker or your BCN or something, and you don't want to just absolutely thrash on it speed-wise, but you want parts done faster, take a look at adjusting line widths in the advanced section of your slicer. Like, why not try with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, a 0.8 millimeter wide infill track? Because that width there actually plays into the percent fill of that space. So all of a sudden that double wide line is actually accounting for more of the volume. So you have to make less passes on your infill to result in that same 40% fill pattern. And actually, as trivia, that right there is why E3D nozzles, if you ever look at an E3D nozzle and you see that just blunt tip on there, that blunt tip is actually to prevent the filament from, as it's going down and laying down a wider than nozzle bead, from cavitating up around the tip of that nozzle. So it makes it easier to get that flat line. And that's why you sometimes will see, particularly with fatter nozzles, a difference in E3D, true E3D pattern nozzles that have got the blunt tip, better top surfaces than something that's that more traditional or the more just straight cone.
Yeah. Interesting. So did you say you had another question? Thought you said you might have two.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really, really have liked about the Voron community is, since it's like the CAD is available, everything, and that allows the community to come up with a lot of modifications for the printers. I mean, the MGN12 that was on R2 for V2.4, that started as a mod. I was wondering, as far as PIP providers go, how close to stock are they running their machines?
It ranges. I mean, for example, I run very close to stock. I know other providers are running Zoll Mantis hot ends. I know there are other folks who are doing, say, longer shaft stepper motors and double supported AB, because once again, Core XY, there is not an X and a Y motor, there is an A and a B motor. I know people who are running that. You start also potentially getting into that whole ship of Theseus argument of like, how much does it have to have before it's no longer a Voron? And I am not going to have that argument. I'll know it when I see it, sort of thing. But if you, once again, I trust people to be adults. I trust people to use their best judgment. If you decide that, hey, I get better prints using CPAP for my part cooling stuff, and they still pass muster with me, you know what? Go forth and prosper. Good on you. But once again, I expect you to do your due diligence, do your homework, and make your own educated decisions. And actually, random backstory on the MGN12 mod. I don't know if people actually know the real story behind that. So that originally appeared, and I just dropped it in a channel and said, hey, play with this. And I keep saying I'm not a designer, but everyone would say, well, where did that come from? Well, it came from Doc. Well, it did come from me, but how that happened was I was working with a dual MGN9, which was V2, V2.2. And part of the issue with that system is you can get them where one of the facing rail and the bottom rail could be out off kilter. So like that a little bit. And it would result in just weird bed meshes and everything else. And I was having one rig where I just couldn't get everything truly square. And this was shortly after the Switchwire released. And I had an MGN12 on hand. And I also had seen where some MGN9s had a whole lot of rock in them because they didn't have enough preload. And I had a couple of good MGN9 or MGN12s in hand from Switchwire builds. So I pulled RCF aside one day. And I was like, hey, man, look, can you just make me a V2 gantry with an MGN12? He's like, fine. If you'll quit bothering me about it, I will. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And I had good results with it for a few weeks. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I release this more broadly? He's like, yeah, but I just don't have time to deal with it right now. So just you handle it. Okay, cool. Here's everything, guys. Have fun with it. And that's how it came about, honestly.
Oh, that's cool. I had no idea.
I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one that had the weird issues with alignment. I had very weird bed mesh.
Oh no, like you were not the only one. Like there were like designs out there where you'd have like M3 by 30 screws and like twisting stuff and dial indicators and everything else. And that's way too hard, guys. There's got to be a better way. So
I'm going to change something a little bit because I'm curious. You mentioned the hot end manufacturer that shall not be named earlier on in the stream. Obviously, you've done some work with E3D. One of the trends that I'm seeing more and more are other manufacturers coming out in the similar position, or at least signaling that that's something that is being considered. So for instance, Prusa came out not too long ago saying, hey, we need to have an open conversation on the state of open source and what that can look like, or what that should look like in the future, which from a company that has sort of been a champion is a little concerning. I know E3D has also gone forward and been a little bit heavier on some patent things. Bondtech recently with things. In fact, even E3D for their high flow nozzles is having to throw on some things. Obviously, the state of open source is a little bit in flux. Bamboo's also put some things out there. There's potentially some change happening, or in the start of happening. I'm just curious what your thoughts are, because Voron is a pretty agnostic design team, and it could be you too. You don't have to speak for Voron or anything, but just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that. And hopefully I'm not getting anybody in trouble or myself.
No. So when I speak for Voron, I will say our ethos is open source first and forever. With Voron, we will always be open source. It will always be, we will give you everything we can so you can do with it as you see best. I mean, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and it would be disingenuous of us to not continue to help support other people and grow. And there have been designs that have come from our work out there where they've taken our work and then, built stuff around what we've done. And that's awesome. Like, this is not grade school where someone copying your homework is a bad thing. Like, someone going and looking at your stuff saying, that's a really good idea, I want to do that too. Like, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Yeah. And it really is in those cases. But at the same time, Voron is not a company. Like, we look super polished and everything else. I mean, we've got the fancy polos, but at the same time, this is something we all do because we love it. Yeah. We don't rely on this to put bread on our tables. But E3D, Prusa, Bondtech, Slice, all of these companies are companies. They're beholden to their employees and their investors. They've got to do things to make money. And people are not just giving them money for the sake of giving them money. So they have to do things and in such a way that they can make money. And sometimes that means having to pursue methods of protecting their intellectual capital. Do I have a problem with people designing something and releasing it under closed licenses? No, I do not. What I do have a problem with is twofold. One is, how does that company then choose to enforce a license? You may have heard me say it, but I will say it now. Is that a license, whether it be a patent, a trademark, something like that, those are only worth whatever you are willing to spend to defend them in court. And they're also only worth what your competition will spend to defend themselves in court. So you can get something patented, but someone else can copy it. And if they've got more money and more lawyers than you do, good luck. But once again, if you have those things, you do have to make an effort to defend it, because if you don't defend your patent and marks, it'll be seen as being put into the public sector. And so you will have spent that money and time on something that now anyone can freely copy. So there is this balancing act of, do we enforce it? How do we enforce it? And things like that. So there is that degree of public perception in how you go about doing things. So if you do a thing that is seen as being as open and understanding as possible, that to me is more reasonable than taking more blunter, heavy-handed approaches. For example, E3D announcing their collaboration with Bondtech. I mean, even E3D in their blog says, hey, we have our own patents on our high flow stuff that we think are more applicable than the patents that Bondtech has. But in the sake and the spirit of playing nice, we're going to cross-license their stuff so that we all feel like we're doing what's right by the community and the industry as a whole. And I will applaud them for that. So there's that. And then at the same time, there is that degree of, if you put something out in the universe, we are at a point where it is going to get cloned.
Yeah.
And China is not friendly to exterior entities trying to seek enforcement again for their own IP. So you need to lean back and having those trademarks and patents and everything else to get customs at your particular country's borders to stop those counterfeit clone goods from coming in. And so you have a certain responsibility, once again, to your employees, your staff, your investors, your stockholders, potentially, of ensuring that their investment in you is protected there. So once again, a long answer on the topic. But at the end of the day, once again, we all have bills to pay. We've all got mouths to feed. These guys are no different. It's just how you go about doing it. I mean, E3D, when they started talking about IP, I don't know if they actually said it in their blog or not, but someone basically said, look, our licensing and, whatnot approach is just don't be a dick, guys. So, and that is not an official quote by E3D. Don't let me assume that, or don't let it be said that that was exactly what they said. This is Adam playing translator. There may have been a few pints imbibed prior to that comment, so I may be misremembering it too. But once again, for me, if a company is willing to play nice in the sandbox, then that earns them a fair degree of goodwill. I mean, look at Ultimaker when the S4 came out. They're like, look, we've got a responsibility to everyone. We will open source this at some point, but that point will be a year after this goes on sale for the first time. So,
which that seems fair, right? I mean, there's a period of time, and that's one of the purposes of patents, right? Is like, you need to be able to recuperate your investment and make a reasonable profit off of it. There has been discussion that rule and that law of 30 years is, a sort of ancient history, right? And the day and age of being able to sort of mass produce in markets across the world in a very relatively instantaneous fashion, that is different. And one of the things I think the industry seems like they've done a really great job in the past 10 years or 13 years or so, you know, is taking something and continually iterating it sort of without the fear of having a cease and desist letter at their doorstep, right? And I'm sure patents have been stepped on all over the place, and you know, and they just have, like you said, they haven't been enforced. They haven't, there hasn't been that effort. You know, what is there a risk with these companies going forward and doing this, that we ends up being in a situation where the Voron design team can't release something, or a company can't say, hey, you know, we found a little bit better way to do this by, you know, making some minor modifications to an existing design that becomes restricted for 30 years. Like I think that's what's scaring a lot of people. Less about the profit, or can we buy a Fetus product now versus you know, buying something. I feel like that's less of a community concern. I mean, that might be what gets people frustrated, but long term, it seems like that's less of the issue.
So if you look back at the history of 3D printing, you have to remember IP protection is not a new game. I mean, Stratasys and MakerBot were some of the early players in the game, and they were very aggressive about patenting stuff and very aggressive on pursuing stuff. So everyone has that playbook they've seen, and no one wants to be known as the next Stratasys, and no one wants to be seen as pulling a MakerBot. Like there's that, and that right there would be, you know, a kiss of death if someone ever got referred to as that. But at the same time, speaking at least for Voron, one of the nice things about not being a company is if we release something out in the universe and it's a thing that does a thing a certain way and it conflicts with a patent, all we've really done is provided the information on how to do a thing, which is already published in the patent itself, mind you. So if you do the thing, then that's on you as the maker. Once again, oh, by the way, not a lawyer.
And you don't have a commercial interest in all that.
Yes. I mean, so, I mean, there's no commercial interest in it. Not a lawyer. I'm sure there's a lawyer somewhere hearing this who's having absolute vapors at it. But anyways, there's that. Now, that said, we do try and be cognizant of where there are those patent and IP holding lines in the sand, if you will, where, hey, we really not want to get a cranky email from legal@stratasys.com. So these are the things that we know are still live and in play. So let's just not mess with those and go from there. Like belt printing, great example. I'm sure you guys have all seen the 45-degree gantry belted printers out there. And the reason for that is there is a patent out there somewhere. I can't cite chapter and verse on it, but basically the patent is if it's at 90 degrees from the build surface to the nozzle, that's what the patent is. But if it's at any sort of angle, it dodges the patent. So if you can get clever with slicers and everything else, you can get around that patent. So that's why you see that like that. But once again, it's a case of don't fly too close to the sun, and just be cognizant of where there are things in play. And I mean, looking at the state of open source right now, there are an awful lot of designs out there, not just Voron. There's a lot of designs out there. RatRig, BZBot are two that immediately come to mind that are also all open source and are doing phenomenal stuff that are still completely and totally open, giving people results that are, you know, as good or better than what you get on a commercial rig. The thing that, you know, talking about commercials rigs and the like, kind of to segue to something different, is a question I've been asked a few times. Well, why would I go buy an Ultimaker or a Prusa or a Stratasys or a MakerBot or insert commercial rig here when I could buy a Voron kit, build it, and get faster speeds at better looking quality? It's because then you are the tech support. You're buying those commercial products for a commercial application, and you're buying not just the machine, but the support network behind it. Think about it just like in terms of buying a Dell versus building your own. You can get more for your money building your own, but when something dies, the person you call when that thing dies is yourself. So where are you wanting things to bracket out? So I can't do that cost benefit calculus for you. I would say though that if I was walking into a job tomorrow and they said, "Hey, Adam, we need a 3D printer for work type stuff," I'd say, "Hey, I got a guy named Joe over in Prague you might want to talk to." So
yeah, and I mean that's an example, you know, of a company who's done extremely well, despite, I mean, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth most popular printer are iterations using, you know, basically designs that were itself an iteration
yeah,
of another, right? But you know, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept, right? And I mean, I think they've been extremely successful. Both people just want to support, you know, the original, the support, like they have, you know, they're known for amazing support, all of those things, and they've been able to be successful. I imagine, you know, with new entrants, Bamboo and all of these other, you know, companies, I think, changing, I guess there's maybe a little bit of a paradigm shift in the industry. And I mean, Voron's part of that too. You know, things have been changing, or at least there's you know, the desires for something that's very quick. You know, things like that I wonder, it's not a further question. This is just, I'm wondering, I mean, if there's, you know, there's some reason for some changes there, because it is, you know, the email or conversation that sort of really got me thinking about it was actually the Prusa response, not necessarily anything else that came out. I thought E3D's response was very reasonable. You know, it is a trust system. That's the only thing. You kind of got to trust them. But they basically, that was the message I got, right? It's like, do the right thing, we'll do the right thing, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, I'm just wondering how that's going to change, and future will tell.
Yeah. And I think part of what it is when you look at the ecosystem out there in the commercial space, a lot of the existing players have been playing in the same space for a long time. And all of them have kind of got their own swim lanes, if you will, and they've all played together pretty nicely for a while. But when you get new players in an ecosystem and they've not been in the same swim lane, and they start doing things markedly different than the existing players, you have those, you know, to use corporate buzzwords, those disruptor type events.
Yeah.
Everyone has to respond to those disruptions, whether they be IP and people playing fast and loose with other people's homework, whether it be, you know, patenting what we do going forward so other people don't abuse it, whether it be, you know, dealing with the fact that, hey, our patents just expired, and all of a sudden there are now people building 3D printers in their garage with baling wire and gardening tools. Like, you know, if you told a Stratasys exec 20 years ago that we'd be doing what we're doing now just because we can, like, he would look at you like you had a third head growing on your shoulders, and he'd be getting on the phone with legal and corporate compliance, very, very concerned. So, yeah.
No, I think you have a good perspective. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, you know, things do change. And I do think, yes, you know, we're probably seeing just some reaction to some of the things happening here. And, you know, fortunately the community, and I mean, obviously there is a very large sort of DIY, I want to build community. I don't think that's not going anywhere.
You're not putting that genie back in that bottle.
Yeah, no, not at all. Anyway, sorry. It was a topic. It was one of the first questions I wrote down here, because I know you'd mentioned Slice, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a great. I've always wanted to talk about it. Anyway, anybody else have any other questions? I've missed chat, so if anybody if there's anything from chat too, let me know.
Yeah, I don't have YouTube up, so I've not seen a single thing in chat. So I'm going to rely on you guys to tell me uh, what all you've seen or other people are asking.
No, there was kind of a question about sort of why the slice thing is worse than, anything else. And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, just as far as the way that you pursue and sort of how aggressive you are. If there's anything else that you wanted to mention in that would answer that question.
All I will say is my own feelings on the matter are based upon my own perception of how it was handled at the time. And I thought how it was handled at the time was not how I would have handled it. And I I didn't agree with what their stance was and how they presented their stance there. And that's all I will say on it. I'm not saying Slice makes a bad product. I've had several of their hot ends and they are well-made units. Do not get me wrong there. But I will say that how they chose at that point in time to elect to pursue certain things was not in a manner I would have seen in other circles as being considered as, the polite way of going about things. Yeah. And that's just me. If you want to still buy, use, and source Slice products, that is perfectly fine. Go for it. They make a great hot end. Do not get me wrong there.
Yeah.
I was just turned off by their stance.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say, obviously it came to a head, or sort of got the visibility when DFH got a cease and desist letter or something like that, some nastygram, right? One of the things is, they were a reseller. You have a relationship with them. We're a reseller of Slice. We have their contact information. It definitely probably something that a phone call would have been a lot better than to really scare somebody. Especially somebody who, the business is themselves and they have personal liability over this stuff. That's probably not the best way to handle it. When again, a phone call saying like, hey, here's where our position is, and we notice you've got this thing, and then let somebody make a choice. Totally. And I don't have the whole backstory. That's I tried to avoid it because there are so many, and on both sides, right?
Yeah, and once again, as I said, my comments are purely my own. They're not, speaking for Voron Design at all. This is Doc himself purely stating that I felt how they approached it was not how I would have preferred to see a company interact with a community.
See, now if we take that video clip and instead of, we just remove that part of saying I don't represent Voron Design, you just solemnly hand over the heart express that. We won't do that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But once it gets it out on the internet, there will be a deep fake with, with me out there with Joe Prusa putting me in a headlock next week or something. Although there already are photos of that. Yeah, there's a couple photos of me and Joe hanging out at the Sanjay Mortimer well, not Sanjay Mortimer, but it's the Sanjay Mortimer Festival. So because in Oxford, this time last year.
Voron's a Prusa project, right?
Oh, absolutely. Big Papa Joey P is signing that paycheck every 2 weeks for me, folks.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of fun sometimes to see what new rabbit hole or connection and everything else people try to establish. And it's natural. Humans are built on pattern recognition. We're designed and wired to look for connections and how things interplay. So seeing that Printed Solid is an LDO distributor who got bought by Prusa it's not an unreasonable leap of faith to say that Voron and Prusa have a connection, but to say that, more than that is
Like it was a conspiracy and long in time. Like
yeah, like we've been doing
consolidate
this
the
for 20
industry.
years now, and it's Vorons are complicated to make buying cruces easy and everything else. It's like I wish I had the creative impulses to come up with some of this stuff because I got nothing, yo.
Yeah, you shouldn't have made such a nice manual. Keep it difficult, guys.
I know, right?
We did have a couple other questions. So one of them was just, what's your favorite Voron 3D printer?
That's a hard one because I've got at least one of them all. Uh, so I will say that the most just zen build of any Voron out there is a switch wire. Like a switch wire is just so pleasing to bolt together, and it's and also 3060 extrusion is just kind of chunky and kind of silly and super solid. And at some point, I kind of want to pull my switch wire down and try to lead shot fill the base just to see what happens. But for really a workhorse, it's a toss up between a 2.4 and a Trident. I'm going to say 3 2.4s because there's a fourth one that's more a collection of parts than a working printer. And I've got 3 Tridents right now, and 2 V0s. And one of the running jokes is how many V0 frames and how many V0 frames have I found this week? Because at one point I had a whole bunch. I think I'm down to like just 5 V0 frames now. So yeah, I really go back and forth between a Trident and a 2.4. A Trident is, I'm going to say, a simpler build than a 2.4, but I think they're both solid rigs. Pick whatever works best for how your brain works and go from there. You won't go wrong with either.
It's a very diplomatic answer.
I don't have a favorite because I use both on a daily basis, and I like them both. I will say one of my favorite builds, like favorite printers I've built, was E3D had me build them a Trident. So I built them a 250 spec Trident with an LDO kit that if you were at Earth last year, it was there. That was the Trident that was at their booth. And that right there is probably my favorite build I've ever done because it just, like the color scheme was perfect. It was 3D Print Life dark gray and blue, and the blue was a perfect match for E3D blue. I had Whopping Pochard do a custom set of backers that were color matched in titanium and splash anodized to the blue. Like did everything nice, and then Dust and Speed came to Earth and actually had custom E3D decals done that were on the side of it that matched E3D's trade dress blue. And then it had the nice, I call it the Easy Bake front door, which is an extrusion design or extrusion one-piece front door as opposed to the two-piece hinged front door. It was just one of my favorite builds I have done for myself or for someone else or anything else. That was my favorite just because I felt that one was the one I had done the best. Because here's the dirty little secret: don't look under any of my printers because my wiring is an absolute rat's nest. It is not pretty at all. But theirs, I did everything pretty and right and just
chose to focus on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did have somebody ask sort of if there's plans, and I haven't checked the updated manual. The last one that I had, I remember, like as you're going through, at least for the 2.4, the part of assembling the tool head was still the afterburner. And I mean, obviously now stealth burners become the standard. Yeah, it is a question we get a lot. The afterburner and what's the difference between that, and then people get Clockwork 1 and 2 confused. Anyway, the question is there a plan to put the stealth burner in the manual?
Yes. It's just that documentation is the not fun part.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves designing, everyone loves building, everyone loves tweaking, tuning, and hardware is fun. Software is potentially less fun at times. Some people really love like getting deep in the weeds, configs, and finding that those last tenths and hundredths of speed and everything else.
Yeah.
It takes a certain breed to say, I want to take this and put it in a manual. And we're lucky enough to have people like that in the community who've been phenomenal. Dunar was the one who did the 2.4 manual, and I want to say the Tried manual too. And
Great, yeah.
he was a phenomenal lead on those. But once again, we're getting to that point of hours in the day and brain cells in the head. That pesky day job thing again. So it's just finding everything that we can get together to get it done. Will it happen eventually? Absolutely. Will it happen tomorrow? Probably not. And I'm being honest there.
That's a good answer. So somebody asked, this is an outside question, but sort of what's easier to build if you use a tool head harness with PCBs rather than the BOM? And I really think that's the answer to that question is it depends on who you are, right? So yes, it is easy. I mean, it's physically easier. I think there's less to keep track of. However, anytime you go outside of the standard, it also puts a little bit on yourself to figure out. And certainly there's very helpful people that have probably the exact same configuration and have used that can help you, but you have to find them.
Yes.
Going stock, I think, is never a bad idea to start with, and then have fun modding it, because that is fun. And you will learn it. You know, Aaron, after taking reprinting your parts 4 times, I'm sure you can do that without looking at any documentation ever again. But yes, it's, again, the answer is a qualified yes. But it really depends on sort of who you are and how you want to approach building your Voron.
Yes, absolutely.
Dave asked you if you could give us a roll tide. Oh, he said don't ask. Don't tell him you asked. Never mind. Someone asked if you could give a roll tide.
If you don't have anything nice to say nothing at all. And while I will say that someone had made that comment, if you do not worship at the cult of the SEC, you may not get that joke. But I live in a small town by the name of Auburn, Alabama, that happens to be home of Auburn University, whose big historical rival happens to be the University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide. So asking me, someone who has gotten a master's and a doctorate from Auburn, to say those 2 4-letter words is
like, no way.
Distasteful.
Whole town would know.
You should grab instead of just grab a Tide pen and roll it across and be like, there you go.
Yeah. So no, I will not be saying those words. But so yeah. Let's see.
Someone asked if you're gonna build the eventual V24. Oh, hold on.
Oh boy. He's gonna.
By the way, if you haven't seen the videos from Remurf or pictures, I mean, I think it's on everybody's thing. The V24 is amazing. It is humongous. There you go.
Oh my gosh! Look at that.
Zoom is, the image canceling is not wanting to play nice, but
I'm gonna take that as a yes.
That's one of the Z extrusions, right?
Maybe. I mean, I could be just building a really nice table for myself too, but you guys.
Not gonna lie, I actually want to build one of the extrusion tables because I think they're super cool. Rat Rig has a really nice table. I want to build one.
I mean,
no, anyway, yeah, it's amazing, and you should see that packed into a minivan and 6 people or something like that taking that out. It was something else. And then also having to get a different table for it because the little folding tables we were worried, or they were worried was going to make it collapse.
It was a 250-pound printer.
Yeah.
But I mean, do with what I showed you as you will. I mean, once again, I could be building myself a really nice workbench. I could be building a V24. I could be building neither.
Something that's not additive.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? I know there is an over-under on me saying a certain thing some people have. So I'm going to avoid saying it at least directly, but those who have that bet, they can imply at least me saying one. It's going to be one of my trivia questions.
Okay. Let's see.
I do have one quick question. I know that the Voron team loves their teaser videos. I remember the tap video
Yes.
that came out. Is there anything? I know the kind of the big thing at Remurf was the V24 showing up. Is there anything that you can say about Murph?
I'll say very honestly, we are not expecting to show or demo anything big or earth-shaking at Murph. That one is, our Murph really was our big show this year in the US. I will say, stay tuned in December at Smurf. There may be some interesting things there. Maybe, allegedly,
Okay.
hypothetically.
Setting a date, December. Here you go. Okay. Sweet.
If you can be in Oxford in December, maybe consider showing up. It should be interesting.
Trying to. I've heard that it's not the best time of year weather-wise. That's the only the negative.
I will be there personally. And yes, my southern self will be probably super bundled up and cursing profusely at being cold, but it's for a good cause. And it will. I went to TCT last year, and the crew in the UK, not just E3D, but everyone I met there in the UK were phenomenal human beings, and the event itself is going to be phenomenal. You will, if you can make it, you will be in the crowd with your people, and you can still be the one standing around making fun of my accent, because I will still be the one talking funny even there. But yeah, I think it will be a great time, and who knows what we may or may not roll out.
Sweet. Cool. Somebody's asking what your thoughts are on Canvas.
I will say that on the two rigs I'm building now, I'm going CAN bus on them. So I think it's a good solution. Yes, it does. It takes some different thinking in terms of how you lay stuff out and the like, but being able to go from like 15 or 14 wires down to 4, that's a lot nicer. And then you can go, as opposed to trying to like cram a whole bunch of PTFE or FEP wires into a cable chain, you can go with 4-wire bonded solution still in chains if you like to look at chains, or you can go umbilicals, and with umbilicals you might even be able to get away with using some pretty cheap 4-conductor jacketed PVC stuff. You don't need the Gucci wire maybe. Or you've got the IGUS solutions out there where, yes, IGUS is not the cheapest thing ever, but it damn well works. I mean, they do wire for motion systems. I remember in early 2020, before the world shut down, I was talking with IGUS about, harnessing and everything else for V2s at the time. And I got a bunch of samples from them. I bought a bunch of samples from IGUS and was talking with engineers and was like, hey, look, the chain size you spec at the time, because chain size you spec, meaning 14 conductors, we do not make a wiring package that would work in this application. They didn't make a either a single jacket multi-conductor that was 14 conductors in it that would work, and they at the same time couldn't do like a pair of 7 conductor ones that would be rated to fit in the chain space. I think it was the 10 millimeter chains that we use for the X and the Y. They didn't have ones that would actually still fit into their minimum or their maximum cable packaging spec at the time. So, you know, even they said, what you're doing is the way we do it, because we don't have something that would do it another way. But now that you can run an umbilical from your A motor over your tool head, as long as you strain relief it, which the cable glands, the M12 cable glands, like what, $2 a pop, if that.
Cheap.
That's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
So I like CAN bus as a solution. Is it the only way to do it? No. I mean, I've seen tool head boards that are using USB as the spec and doing that. I've seen, you know, people doing their own custom one-off communications protocols. There's that. I mean, there's multiple ways to slice this. It's just which way makes most sense to you. Kind of going back to what you said, what kind of builder are you? What works best for you and your thought process? And going from there. Another one of those things along the lines of, well, what do I think about? Because this is another one of those natural corollaries to, what do I think about 48 volt? Every single printer I build or rebuild has 48 volts in it these days. It doesn't cost that much more to pick up a 100-watt 48 volt power supply.
Yeah.
And, you know, yes, TMC 5160s are not cheap and 2209s are dirt cheap.
Yeah.
But
you need 2 of them, right? I mean, it's not like
you need 2 of them and a 48 volt supply, and it just gives you so much more headroom for your motion. I mean, think about it like in terms of the difference we saw when we went from 12 volt to 24 volt with our systems. I mean, for my first build was 12 volt. So I've kind of played that gamut in terms of 12 volt, 24 volt, 48 volt, and going from there.
What's your favorite mod that you have on any of your printers?
I love the aesthetics of backers. Like, I love the way they look.
Did you do anodized?
I've got both. I've got one rig. I call it my black box because it's all black parts, black ACM panels, black backers on black extrusions, everything blacked out. And I like, you know, Rolling Stones painted black box. And then I do have my Trident has the anodized backers that are the really, really primo splash ano from Whopping Pochard. I love the way they look. I know they do something, and like they do help, but for me, it's a case of
the
they just look cool. Think about like old cartooning culture. Like if you make it in chrome, it just looks cool. And we all know the first rule of being cool is you got to look cool. So I like those. I ran the Clicky Pro for a long time. I prefer Clicky over inductive, but I've moved to tap on all my rigs. So I really like tap. Let's see. I've got a Nevermore in one of my rigs. But honestly, I know it works, but it's so small. I have most of my printers. I'm working on migrating them to a single room in my house, and I've got a giant, like 50-pound active carbon filter that's 50 pounds of activated carbon, and I think it's a 10-inch vent fan to circulate everything through.
So the whole room is being eventually.
Yeah, the whole room is just being recirced through that. So keep the door closed, like keep the door of the room closed, and keep that thing running. Ain't nothing getting to the rest of my house. So I've got that, but yeah,
that's
like
cool
those
stuff.
are.
Is that a filter that you can get commercially pretty easily?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been running. It's a Winix product. I forgot it's a specific one. that has, because a lot of them are not actually like pelletized.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's one of the pelletized ones that you can get, but it's still not, I don't think it's that primo. But yeah, I mean, for most people, if you're putting this in a garage or in an office or something like that, I mean, at least the one that I have is rated, it would cycle through like a bedroom or an office room, like, you know, I don't know, probably like 10 times an hour. Like, I mean, it pushes a lot of air and
Yeah,
sucks in
I'm
a lot of
putting
air.
links in the chat here.
Yeah, I got you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Here it is.
This
Yeah,
is
I'm
an
curious too,
incredibly
because
cheap solution, actually.
Well, that's just a filter. You need the fan too.
Yeah, of course.
And I just linked the Gucci version of the fan. There is a much cheaper one.
oh, that's not that bad for the filter itself. I mean, I haven't looked at the content yet. Here, I'm sharing it, guys. One sec. Here we
Yeah,
go.
like,
So there's that one,
yeah, here's if you want a cheaper version of the fan.
and here's another one. Oh, so these are similar. Obviously, the second one you posted is a little bit.
So the first one is just the
It's a
filter.
smart one.
Yeah, so the first one's the smart fan, smart like ultra Gucci. So you need both parts. You need the fan, so the thing that moves the air, and then you need just a giant bucket of carbon, which is the second part. And once you get both of those,
you do pellets, or it doesn't matter. You can do anything.
the thing I linked actually has the pellets already loaded in it. So yeah, and it's
and it's used. It's okay. It looks like it's kind of standard for grow
Yep.
and those types of systems. Okay.
Yep, and like the fan on that is
I'm getting
930 CFM.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and only 39 decibels too. So it's not even like that loud.
Yeah, I mean the one I've got a fan that is louder, but I never crank it up to full tilt boogie.
Okay.
So yeah,
This is cool. Okay. I'm trying.
It should work well. Some people who know more about these things than I do said it was a really good solution. I was like, you know what? I'm moving everything to its own room anyways. I may as well. And one thing I need to do is that room does not have an intake into my HVAC system. It only has exits. So my HVAC can push air in, but there's nothing to pull air out of that room. Just go ahead and cut that room off and just have the filter system just tap into the ducts and just have it pull air through the filter and then back up and exhaust through the existing ductwork in the room.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, this is great. And it sounds like it'd be a great solution. If you have one printer, two printers, I mean, maybe it's a little bit much, but I could see, I mean, as you know, Jeremy, you know, you have multiple printers going on, I think, in the same room. So I think as you start doing that, it starts making a lot of sense. Not having to deal with, you know, multiple Nevermores and changing carbon on multiple printers and all that stuff. It just becomes a lot. Plus you don't have there's no macros or anything you have to run. I mean, you'd literally press a button, probably turn it on and turn it off.
Set it, forget it, walk away.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's cool. That's very
Thanks for linking that. I'm interested as well.
Sandy was asking to ask you about your bed fan.
Oh, yes, the bed fan. So a couple of months ago, I was messing around on Jamco, which Jamco is an electric supplier website here in the US. And they have a lot of interesting stuff. And like at one point in time, they had Japanese-made Nidec 5015 fans, the blowers. So like the primo ones for $3 a pop. The only downside was they were 12 volt only. But for Japanese made Nidex, I'll play that game because a lot of boards have 12 volt converters on them. So I bought 10 of those at a time. But no, let me see if I can find it really quick. I have one downstairs. So if you guys can like entertain the room for a minute, I'll be right back.
Okay. Does anybody do any miming? Anybody have any jokes?
Stream friendly jokes. Hmm.
Oh, see, my son and my wife were reading a whole bunch of jokes this morning, and my brain is so awful. I don't remember any of them. So one of them was about an alligator. There it is.
All right.
Hey, we just got to talk about entertaining. We didn't have to do anything. This was great.
So I was on Jamco, or to quote Jeremy Clarkson, so I was on the internet and I found this. This is a 53 CFM 12-volt fan that's 12 inches long. And once again, 53 CFM. Perfect for recirculating air in your printer chamber. All of the air, all of the time. And it is $19.95 on Jamco as we speak.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna check it out. I have an account there.
I do as well. Let's see.
Yeah, they're great. It's a little, I think
Wow.
I mean, a little. I don't think it's very little, but it's not DigiKey size, I don't think.
No,
in
it's a
California,
semi mom and pop shop. I think they're out
Yeah.
of Florida.
I thought they were out of
but,
California, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, Belmont, California.
then I'm confusing it with someone else. So I
But
think
yeah, no, they're great. It's a great company. I mean, they ship stuff pretty quick. It's the catalog isn't again DigiKey extensive, but there's a lot. I mean,
if you can't find Meanwell power supplies anywhere else, they'll have them. Like I had to go to, and this is obviously not a paid endorsement or anything else, but I had to go to them for Meanwell UHP power supplies because those are pretty rare these days, it seems. But so yeah, I linked it in chat, the Zoom chat, not the YouTube chat.
I gotcha.
But yeah, it's a 54, I'm sorry, not 53, 54 CFM, 12 volt, 12 inch long, just absolutely silly fan that it's, once again, you talk about those lines where it's like, why not? That was one of those, well, why not? So it is getting incorporated in at least one of my printers. I think I've got 4 of them floating around at this point. Just toss one of those in the base of a Trident and just stand back.
Oh, totally. I haven't checked the specs on it. Is it loud?
No, not at all. Because it's just so long, it doesn't have to be.
Oh, so it doesn't have to spin that fast, even, right? It's just.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, some of those really high flow, like 5015 blowers, man,
they scream.
They can, yes. You're pushing like 15,000 RPM.
Yep.
Some craziness.
So that fan would recirculate an entire 350 chamber in roughly 5 seconds, just for reference. That's
There's
ridiculous.
No kill like overkill.
That's amazing. Who doesn't like overkill?
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
They have 62 left in stock. I'm sure one of you guys will link that in the YouTube.
Oh, they won't have 62 after this. Yeah.
They already have 60.
I'm buying after this.
Yeah.
I wonder if it could fit that in a V0.
No, but they make a 6-inch version, I know, that would fit in a V0.
Oh, see, we're digging.
After Earth, I was at dinner with a couple of folks and I was talking about that fan, and one of the guys there was like, yeah, I'm going to get one of those for my V0. I'm like, it won't fit. He's like, yeah, but they make a smaller one, right? Well, yeah. And then a couple of weeks later, he sent me a video. I think he went with either a 6-inch or a 4-inch version of that in his V0.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see. Someone said they'll be sold out in 5 minutes. Yeah. And someone's asking Civi to show your salad fork. So just so you guys know, we're in the process of building a Micron and a salad fork. Civi's got a salad fork she's working on, and Alan's working on a Micron. We've been pretty slow to release I guess kits that we're supporting, and mostly because it's a stewardship thing. It's making sure that what we're doing is going to be something that that we can stand by and support, and you guys aren't going to have a big headache. And so they're going through some headache right now, so we can vet some parts that we want to use in that, and then write a whole bunch of notes of things we want to change before we release something. So it's a ways coming, but they will have something, and hopefully, I don't know, we may be able to bring at least one of them, hopefully, depending on how our sourcing works, to Murph, but that's always a little bit of a question mark. It's gotten a lot better these days, but it's still a question mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's the hard thing. Finding parts is, I mean, go to AliExpress, bang in your credit card number, you'll get some eventually. Yeah. But finding good parts and good partners, that's hard.
Oh, totally.
And that's the part that really does take a whole lot of just doing, is actually, working and vetting through all of that. Because at the same time, someone's, sending over a first article, it's really easy to cherry pick that.
Oh, totally. And samples are fantastic.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. Like if someone fumbles a sample, this is a clue. But it's not the samples that will make or break your company. It's the 50th or the 100th.
It's the repeatability. 1,000th. And I mean, we have had suppliers that we started off, we launched product. I mean, we've had suppliers we launched products with that were fantastic the first batch, and then we have 15 pounds of tungsten carbide nozzles that are sitting in our shop. I mean, it happens, right? And it happens more often than we'd like. So one thing we've learned is do the due diligence. Know who you're working with, and try to build a relationship, because it's, once you find a good one, you want to keep them. And yeah, it's tough. So anyway, hopefully soon. We've already ran into a couple small issues, which again means there's another iteration, I think, for us to come up with something. But so sorry, Civi can't show you probably a salad fork right now, but soon.
TM.
I was hoping this question wouldn't come up during stream, but someone is asking when someone's asking for a D's update.
Yeah, so that's another example. We truly need to be a steward to the community, and I am going to make sure that this thing gets tested extremely thoroughly. Right now, the results have been, I would say, more mixed than I would like, and we've seen some using a particular test that is not as high flow as I would like it to be. And we're not going to release a product that claims to be, a great high flow nozzle. That's not a great high flow nozzle. So we're still waiting. We have a few more testing units out. And if it's great, it's great. If not, we won't re-release it. It will be a product that goes by the wayside. And there are alternatives out there. I think Basel is a great option for you if you can get your hands on one. I do think that they're dealing with the same production issues that we have, and anybody supplying tungsten carbide nozzles has. It's a controlled metal. The sort of export capacity is somewhat limited. So it's like each batch is like a 4-month process. And so they will become more available. That may be what you want to go for. I don't want to roll these out yet. Again, we're still doing some testing, but I'm not releasing it until I know that it's good to go. So until then, I mean, I will say the Undertaker nozzle has been a fantastic product for us. It's been well tested, well reviewed. If you just need a normal nozzle that's not particularly high flow but will last you the life of your printer, that's the one I'd recommend.
I mean, I obviously haven't done the flow testing on it, but once again, you could slap a Undertaker in a Rapido or a Dragon High Flow and get probably heap and helpings of flow suitable for most users' needs. Most end users aren't going to need, the 30 millimeters cubed a second flow, realistically. I mean, if that's what you want to chase for, the ultimate high flow and everything, that's great. Good on you. There is a use case for that stuff. Do not get me wrong there. But if you're thinking, hey, do I need this high flow widgety thing? Load up your print profile. Like especially if you're on Prusa Slicer, load it up, like whatever you print on a day-to-day basis, and then slice it, and then go and look and see what the volumetric flow rate is and what it caps out at. Like I'm looking at one of mine right now, and the way I've got the part sliced, it's capping out at 15 millimeters cubed a second. I've got a high flow nozzle in that printer, but what I'm needing to do on that particular part, I'm limited at 15 millimeters cubed a second just because of the material and a couple other considerations. So do you need that high flow or not? I don't know you. I don't know your workflow or anything like that. So I can't tell you definitively, yes, you absolutely positively need this high flow widgety thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things too. Depending on who you are, a lot of times I like to build a printer and it's hard for me to break down. And I'm still thinking about doing the V02 upgrade. Like, it's like, I've got a printer and it works and I don't want to like mess with it. It's one of those things, if you go into that, you are looking at likely retuning things.
oh, absolutely.
And yeah, especially if if you're trying to get like PIF quality, I mean, anytime you're changing the material, there's going to be differences. Anytime that geometry changes significantly, there's going to be differences. And so that's something to consider also. Or if you're trying to push things faster, I mean, you're going to have to retune everything all over again.
Yeah. I mean, my general rule is if it works, don't screw with it. I mean, if you've got multiple rigs and you want to have one as kind of your experimental rig, go for it. But do not just have your single printer be your experimental test bed too. That is the path to madness.
Yeah. But guys, I mean, it is a product that we want to be able to release. I would say right now, again, if you can wait, either we'll have it or the Basel is I think the current market alternative. And I think that's a great nozzle. I have one that I lost. I don't know where it is, but I mean, it's a nice nozzle. So definitely, would recommend trying that out. I would agree. I don't think that it's a product that most people would benefit too much from. But I do understand there's also, if you're buying a 2.4 or a Trident particularly, you're oftentimes trying to squeeze the last extra 1% out of it. And if that's what you need to do to get that extra 1%, I totally stand behind that. Everybody wants to do that. I want to do that with my builds too. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Any more questions come up here? There's a lot more chatter recently. Let's see. No, I don't think so. Do you guys have any other questions?
I do not.
No, I think we've kind of covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. This was a fantastic discussion. Doc, I want to thank you for taking the time. I do think, did we ask you for some trivia?
You told me to be ready to ask some trivia questions. So I've got a couple of floating in the back of my mind, but
no, let's do that. We don't actually we never have a time cut on this. My time cut is 8 o'clock Pacific time when my kid goes to bed. That's when my wife starts knocking on the door, like, get in here. Let's see. So typically we do these trivia questions with some sort of giveaway. Let's see. How many do you have?
How many do you need? Let me say it like that.
I'm gonna the prize is gonna be based off of how many you
have. Let's see. I can do 3 very quickly off the cuff, and I can ad lib, but 5 pretty easy.
Let's do 5, and then Aaron, I'm gonna put you on the spot because nobody here has met you on Meet the Maker, so I'm gonna ask for a trivia question from you as well. We have got, let's see what we've got. Let's do so 20 let's do $25 gift card to each trivia question. Doc, I'm going to give you one and Aaron will do one. We are going to also offer a free it'll be a choice. If you have a 2.4 or Trident and want to do this, we are going to be releasing what we've tentatively called, I think, like Elite Ultra Mega Light Beam, which is a common anomaly product that both Fabrico and DFH are also partnering on releasing. We will be offering that as a prize. I want to say it's well over $100, I think, for the product itself. So we'll do that one, or we can offer that in a gift card if that's not a product for you. So I'm just going to write this down so I forget. Okay, so we got 2 of those, and then let's do 4 others if my math is right, and those will be $25 gift cards. So this is the fun part, because then you see the chat gets you're not watching the chat, so you're good, but the chat gets pretty crazy. So there is a delay, just so you guys know. So, maybe there'll be a little bit of pause as we're trying to get questions, but basically we'll let Doc ask a couple trivia questions. As soon as we see the first one hit the chat that's right, we're going to say it's right. We're going to see more scroll through here, and that's a delay that we have between the stream and our Zoom call here. But that's how we'll do it. Cool. Doc, you want to roll through your first one?
Yeah, sure. So actually, this is going to be a little bit of deep trivia. So what was my first Voron serial number?
Do you have to, is it just the number, or is it going to be the model too?
No, just the number.
Okay. I think I know this. I want to say you've actually mentioned this before.
Some of you have heard the story, some of you may not have, but
we got one. Did you make it out of Clear Pet G? So we got a Voron 1.5.
Well, that's the model
007,
number, but I'm wanting the serial number.
A 007, 008, 16, 10, 15. So it's 2018, right? So that should be a hint.
Yep.
26, 42. You can give them a range, maybe. We got 001.
It's sub 100.
There we go. Sub 100. Thank you. That's helpful. I want to keep reading off the numbers. Now I really know.
While we're waiting for guesses, I went ahead and got my super ultra beam. This is
so that's what will be.
That looks nice.
Yeah, so John, Whopping Pochard, I think assisted with this as well. It's a common anomaly design. It is sweet. What is not shown on here, which I believe we will also be offering. It's an option, but they're also going to have CNC milled joints too,
Nice.
just to Gucci it out a little bit more. Okay, so Justin, you actually got that if you're the first one. I was looking at that beam, so it's 64. So yes, Remurf Justin, you've got that first one here. So you've got, well, you don't get 2, you get 1. You can buy the other one if you want. So that's a $25 gift card and the beam. And I'm not going to write this down. The stream I can always refer to. Okay.
Yep. So originally I was issued 64, but then at the time it was done, someone else said, hey, I really wanted that number. I was like, you know what? I'm not married to this. So we horse traded and I wound up with 70. And that's the one that's actually codified in the registry. But if you go back to the actual post, you can see where I was issued 64.
Oh, that's cool. And actually, yeah, Justin, actually, this is how I'm gonna do it, just so I don't forget. It will save me a bunch of time. Shoot an email to info@west3d.com. Just let us know, and we'll make sure to get that order, like sort of a pre-order set up for you. And that will work. Yeah, 64 would have been a cool number. I mean, is a cool number. I can see. 70 is pretty cool too.
Yeah, the 070 just looked cool. And that's why I also made sure to get serial number 7 for the switch wire and the V0.
Oh, nice. So did you like hold them and you're like, hey, I make sure as this first wave comes through, I'm gonna get mine in that first wave?
Yep.
That's cool. I will say for this beam, Aaron, you measured that out, right? And it's like it is a considerable savings in weight.
It's very significant, yes.
Daniel, someone actually got 64 before Justin did.
Oh, did they? Where?
Robin R. Yeah.
Oh, Robin R did. Hey, I'm sorry. Justin, I'll still shoot you that gift card though. Just let me know. Sorry, that was my mistake. So Robin R, if you can shoot me an email, info@west3d.com, you've won that. And again, we'll also, the alternative is you can get whatever we end up retailing that for, we can shoot you that as a gift card also, if that's what you want. Let's go for the second one, Doc.
All right. So this one also is well, it's gonna be a little bit of inside baseball too, but what was the first custom color of AV or ABS that KVP did for me on request?
Is it a oh, I don't want to, okay. It's not, I can't ask questions. Oh, I didn't know that was a custom color.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I don't want to give hints, but I think Alan's using that color. Okay, so you guys definitely, you probably need to look at the KVP catalog on ABS and choose from that. Because I mean, they've got a lot of colors, but this is a somewhat specific
Maple
one.
Leaf Maker got it.
Oh, see, I just can't. Oh, there it is. I'm delayed. Mine's like live minus like 5 seconds. So Maple Leaf Maker's got that one.
Some of y'all been paying attention.
So that's another $25 gift cards. I feel like you've won on one of these before and you pass it off to somebody else. If that's what you want to do, I'm still going to send you the gift card and you can just pass it on to somebody that you know would want to use it. Or if you want to keep it and buy something, that's fine too. Let's go ahead and do the third one, and then Aaron, I'll let you do yours.
All right. So I am famously known for quoting a particular line from the government, known for non-confirming information. I'm avoiding saying the exact terms for obvious reasons, but that line, which is known as the Glomar response, is in relation to a certain event in history. That event in history inspired what James Cameron movie?
It appears Maple Leaf Maker is doing a giveaway of their own for the beam.
Okay, so let's answer this question, and then we're gonna have to go to the Maple Leaf.
All right,
Makers,
we're gonna have to do another question because since you're putting the answer in Zoom chat, that's actually showing up.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Dude.
Oh no.
Oh well.
I thought you were to cut that off. My bad.
Well,
Can you change the view and just take your chat off? I don't see it on mine. My computer. stinks.
Well, it's because the way that I have.
Oh, it probably shows up as the pop-up notification on the bottom.
Yes. So give me just a second.
Well, how about this? Let me see, Doc, if I can DM you. Do you have Discord open?
Yeah, I do.
Maybe I can go that way. Let's see. Okay. You can just he's gonna message me the answer on Discord. So let's do your fourth one.
Aaron, you ask one, and then while I figure something else out.
Okay. So but we do have the guess the serial number for Maple Leaf Makers V0 cereal. And again, there's a delay between when I said that and when it actually shows up in chat here. All right, so we're going again for the serial number for Maple Leaf Makers V0. People are really chatting about that chat box. Suggestions on how to remove it. And asking a question if we can get a range.
Let's see.
And yeah, I don't know the answer, so I can't tell you if any of these are right.
Yeah.
Sanity would cheat on this one. I feel like I could go on Discord maybe, and I don't know if it's listed anywhere. That might be cheating too.
Yeah, I'm
Zeta
sure.
got it.
Oh, it's 420. Okay.
Of course, the Canadian would do that.
So Zeta Tango, if you just email info@west3d, let us know that you were a winner on there. I'll send you that gift card. Awesome. Aaron, do you have yours?
I do. So when I originally started building my second V2, I was extremely focused on getting this serial number.
I know this one. Do you have any hints on that?
I actually do. Hang on. There's your hint.
There you go. I think we maybe have one.
Yeah, Joshua got it.
All right, Joshua. So the answer was 5555. And yeah, send an email to info@west3d.com. We'll get you that gift card as well as the choice for a larger gift card or that super mega ultra, whatever we're calling it, elite X beam.
And Maple Leaf Makers, actually, I got serial number 2600 for my V0.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the last one. Doc, did you think of another one?
I'm still coming up blank after my big one was going to be the one about the abyss, but apparently Zoom and technology decided to throw a spanner in our works.
Let's see. Alan or Civi, if you've got one.
Ooh, actually I do, but it's mostly for the old folks in the
We got to let the old folks win something sometimes.
I mean, the folks with a little bit of gray in our beards.
Yeah. So what is the name of the recording artist that released a song that was the inspiration for the title of De La Soul's first album?
How far back is this? I'm thinking if you're talking about someone that was an inspiration to something that's pretty old.
Well, I mean, De La Soul was like 90s.
It's old. Sibby was born in the 90s.
I know. Well, and
I wasn't even here.
So you're saying I'm old? I'm hearing I'm old.
Not there yet. Not there yet.
and as I'm very fond of saying, Daniel, I have tattoos older than you.
I have no chance in winning this one either.
I've been cranking it a lot in the garage as I'm building the Micron. Okay,
I'm
so
not seeing any guesses.
Alan, I sent Daniel my answer via Discord DM.
Oh, I could see that.
But I won't claim that prize.
You can. Do you think that's the right answer?
Yeah.
We've got. Let's see. We've got. I have no idea. So we got Prince, Pink Floyd.
oh man.
I don't want to say it now. Oh, there you go.
Yep. Tripping on a Duck, got it. Johnny Cash and the song 5 Feet High and Rising. So they took 3 Feet High and Rising, and that was the title of the album. They also sampled Johnny Cash on the tune Magic Number.
That's awesome. And Doc
Actually,
did
I
get
do
it
have.
right.
I've got one obscure trivia question. If you have any more left,
Yeah,
music.
let's do it. Let's do it. So Tripping on a Duck, send an email, info@west3d.com, just so we can record it. It'll save me time having to rewatch this and write this stuff down. And let's do the last one. Doc, you said you have one?
Yep. So the Gray album was a bootleg mix album that was a combination of DJ Danger Mouse doing Jay-Z's Black Album and what other album?
I have something to tell you after the answer.
Someone said that album's amazing, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
And then if you want to message me the answer, I can make sure. Because by the way, I'm the absolute worst at trivia. I don't think I've ever won a trivia game in my life. There was a bar every Thursday we used to go to that did trivia, and it was a lot of fun, but never won. Ever. I rely solely on my team. Okay. We've got it here. So Nick looks like it's there. So the White Album, Beatles.
There's another mashup, which is Black on Black, which is Jay-Z over Metallica's Black Album.
That's probably fun.
99 Problems is especially good.
Ooh, that may be what I'm listening to tonight.
I'm going to check it out right after the stream now. That's awesome. Yeah, so Nick, send an email, info@west3d.com. We'll get that processed within the next day or two, and send you a gift card. Guys, thank you. This was like an incredible stream. Doc, it's great to talk to you. I was super happy to be able to meet and sit down with you a little bit after Remurf, which, by the way, super awesome seeing like a whole bunch of the Voron team there. Great event. Hopefully we can see some of you guys there next year. It was, again, very cool. It was our first event. It was my first rep ever. I think I know for everybody that was there on our team, at least, we came back after that and being like, wow, that was an amazing experience.
I can say safely that the Voron team will be there next year for sure.
That's awesome. Doc, again, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Not many people, I don't think we say how long it's going to be. And not many people are like, sure, I'll sit down with you for 3 hours and just chat. You took out basically your entire Sunday evening talking to us. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you
for
very
having
much.
me. Yeah. You guys giving spotlights to people in the community to tell their stories is phenomenal, because it's so easy just to see text on a screen and everything else, and sometimes disassociate people from everything else. Having names and faces out there, getting to rep festivals, watching these live streams, things like that really does help rehumanize something that we're all still trying to just get out of our own shells and our own homes and apartments and everything else. So really, this is a phenomenal opportunity. I'm very thankful that you had me on here. I mean, it's like Joe Pruse's shirt says, other people are makers. I'm just a printer. I build stuff and print stuff, and I help other people, stand on their own shoulders of giants. But there are far more brilliant people than I am out there. So I just appreciate being able to share the virtual soapbox, if you will, with some of those great minds.
Much appreciated. Maple Leaf Maker said that he's 15% less scared of you now. And I mean, truly, that's the purpose of this. I mean, me personally, I was so intimidated the first time I actually reached out to somebody on the Voron Design team. I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna sound like the idiot I am, and like, it's just it's so great. And I think that's what has been great about this, is just to see that there are people that have a hobby just like you, and that's how they got into this, and they just, they're not they're not some scary person that you can't reach out to. They're very human.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you showed that, so thank you. Again, very much appreciate the time. Everybody that stayed on here for 3 hours, I appreciate that too.
I didn't mean to take up all of you guys' evening, so thank you to everyone who put up with my
It's great. The
bladder.
first time I did this, I was telling my wife, I was like, yeah, I'd probably go like 45 minutes, an hour, or something like that. And I mean, we tend to run these. This is about how long they run. Again, it's great. That means there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure we could keep going, but to be fair to everybody's night and people on the West Coast dinner or whatever, we'll sign off. Thank you guys, and again, hopefully see you guys here next time.
Yeah, thanks again.
Right. Thanks, everyone.